Story 1. I always liked Mark. When he and Lena first moved in next door, they were the perfect suburban cliché barbecues, hedge trimming tips, and kids who were thick as thieves. Then the cliché shattered. My wife Sarah decided that because Lena was her best friend, she had to launch a covert mission to destroy Mark's reputation. She turned our kitchen into a courtroom and our friends' children into witnesses, treating every playdate as an interrogation session. I tried to stay out of the blast radius, but when Sarah finally asked those innocent kids to choose between their parents, I realized I had to blow up our own domestic peace to stop the madness.
I always liked Mark. When he and Lena first moved in next door, they were the perfect suburban cliché. We'd trade hedge trimming tips over the fence. They'd bring over a bottle of wine for our barbecues, and our kids, my 7-year-old son Leo and their 2 Josh and Maya, were thick as thieves. Our backyards became one big shared park. It was easy. Then the cliché shattered. My wife Sarah came home one night, her face pale, her knuckles white around her car keys. Lena called me, she said, her voice a tight wire. Mark's been screwing his assistant for 6 months. And just like that, the easy part was over. The divorce was a meat grinder. Vicious. Lena moved out, landing in an apartment across town, but Mark stayed. The house, the yard, the ghost of their family, he kept it all along with the kids, Thursday through Sunday. Sarah's loyalty, of course, was welded to Lena. They'd been best friends since college. I'd listen to Sarah on the phone for hours, her voice a low murmur of outrage and consolation. He's a monster, sweetie, a soulless pig. I didn't see it that way. I saw a guy who'd made a catastrophic mistake. When I'd see him taking out the recycling, he just looked hollowed out. He'd give me a tired wave and I'd wave back. He was a cheater, not a leper. Sarah disagreed. You shouldn't be friendly with him, Alex. He's our neighbor, Sarah. What am I supposed to do? Throw rocks at his windows? Her jaw tightened. She didn't have an answer for that. Then her mission started. It was subtle at first. She started inviting Josh and Maya over constantly. Leo misses them, she'd say, which was true. But they weren't just playdates anymore. They were intel gathering sessions. The first time I noticed it, they were all at the kitchen table with milk and cookies. So, what did your dad make you for dinner last night? Sarah asked, her voice syrupy sweet. Pizza, Josh, the older one at 9, said through a mouthful of chocolate chip. Oh, that's fun, Sarah said. Did he make it himself? Or was it delivery? Delivery, Maya chirped. Again, the words slipped out, coded in judgment. I looked up from my laptop. Sarah just smiled at the kids, a bright plastic thing. A week later, they were in the living room building a Lego tower. I was trying to read on the couch. Does your dad help you with your homework when you're there? Sarah asked, sitting on the floor with them. Sometimes, Josh said, concentrating on a tricky piece. But he lets us play video games first. For how long? She pressed. Does he set a timer? No, Josh said. We just play until he says stop. Sarah said. The sound hung in the air, heavy and critical. I folded the corner of my page, my concentration shot. It felt wrong, like watching someone read another person's diary. It kept escalating. The questions got sharper, more invasive, digging for dirt. She was a goddamn prosecutor, and these poor kids were on the stand with no idea they were testifying against their own father. Is the house clean when you get there? Does your dad ever yell? Does he have friends over? After you go to bed? I tried to push back gently. Honey, maybe we should let them just play, I said one afternoon, trying to sound casual. They don't need a 20-question session every time they come over. She shot me a look that could curdle milk. I'm just making conversation, Alex. I'm trying to make sure they're okay. Lena is worried sick. They seem fine, I said. They have a dad who loves them. He's a liar and a cheat, she hissed, keeping her voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. That's what he is. The final straw, the moment the whole ugly thing cracked wide open, was a Friday night. Sarah had invited Josh and Maya for a movie night with Leo. Mark was supposed to pick them up at 9. We were all on the floor with bowls of popcorn watching some animated movie about a heroic space hamster. It was a normal, happy scene. The kids were laughing, Leo was spilling popcorn everywhere, and for a minute, I let myself forget. I thought maybe Sarah had finally backed off. I was an idiot. Halfway through the movie, during a quiet part, Sarah paused the TV. The sudden silence was jarring. The kids looked at her, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. "Hey guys," she said, her voice so unnervingly calm. "I have a question for you, and I want you to be really honest." Josh and Maya nodded, their eyes wide. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I just knew this was it. "Do you have more fun when you're here with Leo and me?" she started, then turned her head slightly. "Or when you're at your dad's house?" She paused, letting the question sink in. Then she delivered the killing blow. "Who do you like spending time with more? Me and your mom or your dad?" The air went out of the room. Josh's face crumpled in confusion. Maya looked like she was about to cry. They were just kids being asked to choose a side in a war they didn't even understand. My son Leo just looked back and forth between them, sensing the sudden, awful tension. I moved before I even thought. I snatched the remote from her hand and hit play. The space hamster was back on screen, squeaking about galactic justice. The noise was a welcome shield. "Okay, who wants more popcorn?" I said, my voice unnaturally loud and cheerful. I stood up, grabbing the empty bowls, not looking at my wife. "Let's get a refill." I herded a confused Leo and a shell-shocked Josh and Maya into the kitchen. I didn't say a word to Sarah. I didn't have to. The look on my face must have been enough. I busied myself at the counter, my back to the living room, my hands shaking as I scooped out more popcorn. I could feel her eyes burning into my spine. When Mark's headlights cut across the front window at 9 o'clock sharp, I practically threw the kids' coats at them. "Did you guys have a good time?" Mark asked from the doorway, giving me a small, appreciative smile. "They were great," I said, forcing a grin that felt like cracking plaster. I hugged Josh and Maya, holding them for an extra second. "See you guys soon." I shut the door behind them. The deadbolt slid home with a heavy thunk times that echoed in the sudden suffocating silence of the house. Leo had already gone upstairs to his room. It was just the two of us. I turned around slowly. Sarah was standing in the archway to the living room, her arms crossed, her jaw set. The soft, concerned mask she wore for the children was gone. All that was left was cold, stubborn defiance. The opening bell for a fight I never wanted had just rung. What the hell was that? The words were out before I'd even fully turned to face her. My voice was low tight. What was what she shot back her face, a mask of indignation. I was just talking to the kids. That wasn't talking, Sarah. That was a deposition. You put two children on a witness stand in their own damn living room and asked them to choose between their parents. Her arms tightened across her chest. I was worried about them. Bullshit. You weren't worried you were fishing. You've been fishing for weeks. I took a step closer, my anger finally boiling over. The pizza, the homework, the video games, all of it. You've been running a covert Alexander out of our kitchen. For Lena. The mention of her friend's name cracked the facade. Her defiant glare faltered. Lena is my best friend. She's going through hell. She asked me to keep an eye out, that's all. Keep an eye out for what? For proof that Mark is a monster? I threw my hands up in disgust. He's not a monster, Sarah. He's a guy who works 50 hours a week, and on his nights off, he orders his kids pizza and lets them play video games. My God, call the Hague. He cheated on her, she screamed the whisper fight over. He broke his vows and blew up his family. He doesn't deserve to have it easy. This isn't about him having it easy. It's about his kids. They're not ammunition for Lena's custody battle, and we are not her goddamn spies. I was pacing now the quiet house, feeling like a pressure cooker. Being a shitty husband doesn't automatically make him a shitty father. You, of all people, should know that's a line you don't cross. I'm helping her protect them, she insisted, her voice trembling with righteous fury. She needs to build a case. He has more money, better lawyers. She needs anything she can get to show he's an unstable influence. An unstable influence, I stopped, incredulous. By ordering dominoes, you're not helping her, Sarah. You're her pawn. She's using you to hurt him, and she's using his own children to do it. And you're letting her right here in our house. You've always taken his side, she spat, her eyes welling with tears of frustration. From the very beginning. There are no sides, there are just two kids who are being emotionally manipulated by the adults who are supposed to protect them, and tonight you were one of them. The accusation hung in the air between us, ugly and undeniable. She stared at me, her mouth a thin, hard line. There was no apology in her eyes. No regret. Just the cold, hard certainty of a zealot. We were at a stalemate, a deep, jagged canyon opening up between us on the living room rug. You need to stop, I said, my voice dropping again, exhausted. It ends tonight. No more questions. No more debriefings. She just shook her head slowly. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, but it wasn't a tear of sadness. It was one of pure, stubborn conviction. I have to help her, Alex. She's my friend. I'm not going to abandon her. Even if it costs us everything, I pressed, my stomach clenching. Have you thought this through? This is called parental alienation, Sarah. It's a legal term. What do you think happens when Mark finds out his kids are being interrogated every time they come over? He'll stop letting them come. He'll tell Josh and Maya they can't play with Leo anymore. Or worse, his lawyer gets wind of this and we get dragged into their divorce. Subpoenas, depositions. You think that's going to be fun? He won't find out, she said, but her voice lacked its earlier fire. A flicker of doubt. He will, I said, seizing on it. Kids talk. And what you did tonight, asking them to choose, that's a scar, Sarah. That's the kind of thing they tell a therapist about one day. Or their dad tonight when he's tucking them in. You've put our family, our son, directly in the blast radius of their war. She turned away from me, walking to the window and staring out into the dark, her back rigid. It was a dismissal. The conversation was over. She was putting her loyalty to Lena above me, above our family, above common decency. She was convinced she was on the side of the angels, and nothing I said could break the spell. She eventually walked past me without a word and went upstairs. I heard our bedroom door click shut. I stood alone in the silent house, the remnants of popcorn and a cheerful kids' movie mocking me from the TV screen. The rage had cooled, leaving behind a cold, heavy residue. She wasn't going to stop. She was going to be more careful, more subtle, but she wasn't going to stop. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't change her mind. So I had to go around her. I looked out the same window she had across the manicured lawn to Mark's house. A single light was on in the kitchen. He was probably cleaning up, getting the kids' backpacks ready for Monday. Being a father. My loyalty wasn't to Lena's scorched earth campaign. It wasn't even to Mark. It was to those kids. And it was to protecting my own family from the shrapnel that was about to fly. Sarah had made her choice, siding with the war. I was siding with the peace. Even if I had to blow up our own. I walked to the front door, slipping on the shoes I'd kicked off hours earlier. The air outside was cool and clean. I didn't hesitate. I walked down our porch steps across the damp grass that separated our two little kingdoms and straight up Mark's driveway. The light in his kitchen window cast a warm, lonely square onto the lawn. I could see his silhouette moving inside. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding, a heavy, determined rhythm against my ribs. Then I raised my hand and knocked on his door.
Story 2. I should have seen the first red flag for what it was, a giant waving blood red banner signaling a Category 5 hurricane named Brenda. For a decade, I was trapped in a relationship where I felt I was being systematically destroyed. The war wasn't about a stolen hoodie, a washer, or even a tax refund. It was about my children. She was trying to use them as the final weapon to break me. And in that moment, I realized I was done being a target.
I should have seen the first red flag for what it was, a giant waving blood-red banner signaling a Category 5 hurricane named Brenda. But I was 20 in love with her son Mark and hopelessly optimistic. Mark was in the military stationed 1,000 miles from my Kansas home, and our relationship was a whirlwind of letters and late-night calls. The first banner waved on Facebook. I posted a playful comment on Mark's wall after he'd stolen my favorite hoodie during a visit. "You're lucky. I love you, you thief. I'm going to get you back for that." A string of laughing emojis followed. Benign. Cute, even. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was Mark, his voice tight with a tension I'd never heard before. "Sky, what did you post on my Facebook?" "What? Just that silly thing about the hoodie." "Why?" A heavy sigh crackled through the phone. "My mom just called my commanding officer's office. She reported that you were making threats against me online and that they needed to be aware of your unstable nature." I was silent. Not because I didn't have words, but because my brain couldn't form a single one. He continued, "My first sergeant pulled me aside. I had to explain that my fiancée wasn't planning a hit on me over a sweatshirt. That was Brenda. Before I'd even met her in person, she was trying to torpedo my life and his career over a joke. Mark brushed it off as her being overprotective. I, like an idiot, accepted that. Our first in-person meeting was a trial by fire. She sized me up from the doorway of her immaculate suburban home, her eyes scanning my simple jeans and t-shirt with unconcealed disdain. Later, while Mark was out of the room, she cornered me in the kitchen. "So you're the one," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Mark tells me you're from Kansas." "I am," I said with a smile, trying to find common ground. Her own smile vanished. "Let me give you some advice. My son is destined for great things. He doesn't need some little piece of Kansas trash dragging him down." The words hit me like a slap. I stood there, stunned, while she just turned back to chopping her vegetables as if she'd just commented on the weather. When Mark came back in, I couldn't speak. He saw the look on my face and asked what was wrong. Brenda answered for me. "Oh, we were just having a lovely girl-to-girl chat." "Weren't we, Skylar?" Her control bled into every corner of our lives. When my parents, bless their hearts, offered to buy us a washer and dryer as a wedding gift, we were ecstatic. We were young, broke, and the idea of not having to haul laundry to a laundromat felt like winning the lottery. We made the mistake of sharing our good news with Brenda. "Absolutely not," she snapped over the phone. Mark had her on speaker. "You will not accept that. It's a handout. My son does not take charity, especially not from times them, asterisk." "Mom, it's a gift," Mark argued, his voice already losing its edge. "It's a power play, Mark. They're trying to make you feel like you can't provide for her. You tell them no." We fought about it for a week. We took the washer and dryer, and for the next year, Brenda would find a way to mention it in every conversation, a constant reminder that I had forced her son to accept a handout because he couldn't stand up to me. But the tax refund, that was the moment I realized this wasn't just overprotectiveness. This was war. We filed our first taxes as a married couple, and we're getting back a few $1,000s. It was a fortune to us. We planned to pay off my clunker of a car. The day the refund hit our joint account, I was thrilled. A few hours later, I logged in to pay a bill and my stomach dropped. The balance was zero. The entire refund was gone. A single transfer. To B. Miller. Brenda. I called Mark, my voice shaking. She took it. She took all of it. He didn't believe me at first. Then he checked. The phone call that followed was epic. I could hear her screeching through the receiver. "I was just holding it for you," she yelled. "You two are children. You would have wasted it on something frivolous. I know what's best." It took threats of legal action from my dad before she wired the money back. The very next day, we walked into the bank, closed that account she'd been on since Mark was 16, and opened a new one at a completely different bank. The boundary was set. A line drawn in concrete. To Brenda, it was a declaration of war. I had stolen her son and cut her out of his finances. I was the villain, the conniving little gold digger who had turned her perfect boy against her. Then came the kids. Our firstborn, a beautiful baby girl, was a new pawn in her game. Brenda, an ex-nurse who now considered herself a holistic wellness guru, launched her campaign before the pregnancy test was even dry. The phone calls were relentless. "You can't vaccinate my grandbaby, Mark. It's poison." Skylar, with her so-called medical training, is brainwashed by Big Pharma. Does she want to give the baby autism? Because that's what will happen. She emailed him debunked articles. She texted him horror stories. She preyed on his anxieties, whittling fears into his ear that I, his wife, the mother of his child, was going to willfully harm our daughter. It was a constant, draining battle that put a deep and painful crack in our marriage. The years that followed were a blur of 2 more children deployments and Brenda's escalating madness. She would tell Mark I was going to cheat on him while he was gone, that I was wasting his deployment pay. She accused me of everything under the sun, a constant venomous drip poisoning our well. Mark, worn down by years of her manipulation and struggling with his own demons from his time overseas, was trapped. He loved his mother, but he was drowning in her toxicity. Eventually, the weight became too much for him. He agreed to go to an inpatient treatment program for his PTSD. It was the hardest and bravest decision he ever made. It also meant I was alone. 3 kids, ages 5, 3, and 1 in a house 1,000 miles from any family. Just me. It was hard. It was lonely. But we were managing. I was holding our world together with duct tape and caffeine, waiting for my husband to come home healthy. One night, about a month into his treatment, I was on the phone with his Aunt Carol, Brenda's sister, and the one sane person in the Miller family. "You're doing such a good job, Skylar," she said, her voice warm. "I don't know how you're managing it all." "Some days I don't either," I laughed, exhaustion lacing my voice. There was a pause on her end. A hesitation. "What is it, Carol?" "Skylar, honey, I don't know if I should say anything. Just tell me." Another deep breath crackled through the phone. "It's Brenda. She's been calling everyone. The whole family. She's telling them that you're the reason Mark had to go away. She's saying you're a unfit mother. That you're hurting your own children." The phone felt cold against my ear, a conduit for a poison that was finally seeping into my bones and turning them to steel. I thanked Carol, my voice a flat, dead thing, and hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I walked into the living room where my 5-year-old was building a lopsided Lego tower and my 3-year-old was coloring on a piece of paper and occasionally the floor. The baby was asleep in his crib. I looked at them, my children, my entire world that I had been holding together while their father healed, and I felt a clarity so sharp it could have cut glass. The war wasn't about a stolen hoodie, or a washer and dryer, or even a tax refund. It was about them. She was trying to use my children as the final weapon to destroy me. And I was done being a target. 2 days later, the phone rang. It was Mark. His voice sounded lighter than it had in years the therapy was working. I felt a pang of hope immediately followed by dread. "Hey, Sky," he said. "Listen, I'm getting a 7 2-hour pass. My grandpa's taken a turn and the doctors are letting me come home to see him." "Oh, Mark. I'm so sorry about your grandpa," I said, my voice softening. "Of course. When are you flying in?" "Tomorrow night. And listen, I've been thinking a lot in here. About communication, about forgiveness. I think since I'll be in town anyway, I should go see my mom. Maybe we can finally just make the peace." The steel in my bones solidified into adamantium. "You can see your mother, Mark. That's your choice." He let out a sigh of relief. Thank you, Sky. That means a lot. I was thinking maybe I could swing by with the kids for an hour just so she can see them. It would mean the world to her. No. The word was quiet, but it hung in the air between us like a guillotine. What? He asked, his lighter tone vanishing. What do you mean, no? I mean, no. You are free to have whatever relationship you want with your mother. I will not stop you. But she is not seeing our children. Not for an hour. Not for 5 minutes. Not ever again. Skylar, that's not fair, he protested, his voice rising. She's their grandmother. She's a viper who has spent the last month while you've been gone, and I've been alone with 3 kids, calling every member of our family to tell them I am an unfit mother who is hurting my own children. I said my voice as calm and cold as a morgue slab. She doesn't get to do that and then get a visit with those same children as a reward. The door is closed. I've locked it and thrown away the key. So you're just going to cut her out. What about the kids? Don't they deserve a grandmother? They deserve a mother who isn't being systematically destroyed by her. They deserve to not be used as pawns in her sick game. This conversation is over. I hung up before he could respond. He arrived the next night, the air in our home thick with unspoken arguments. He kissed the kids, his face a mask of strained joy, and put them to bed. As soon as the last bedroom door was shut, he turned on me. We need to talk about this, Skylar. There's nothing to talk about. I was wiping down the kitchen counter, my movements sharp and efficient. Damn it, stop that and look at me, he snapped. His voice was raw. You're being hateful and you're holding grudges. That's all this is. She's my times mother, asterisk. You want to punish her, so you're using our children to do it. I slammed the sponge into the sink and turned my eyes blazing. Punish her, a grudge. Do you have any idea how small that makes this sound? A grudge is what you hold when someone cuts you off in traffic. A grudge is for a petty disagreement. This is not that. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so the kids wouldn't hear. This is a decade of sustained psychological warfare, Mark. She called my husband's military command over a joke. She called me Kansas trash. She tried to stop my parents from giving us a gift. She stole thousands of dollars from our bank account. She waged a multi-year campaign to convince you that I was going to intentionally harm our children with life-saving medicine based on her holistic bullshit. And while you were gone, getting help for the very trauma she helped inflict on you, she told our family that I was abusing our kids. I was inches from his face, now my voice, a venomous whisper. This is not a grudge. This is a diagnosis. Your mother is a narcissist with a personality disorder, and I am done letting her sickness infect this house. My only priority is protecting those 3 people sleeping down the hall. I will not offer them up as a sacrifice on the altar of your mother's ego, so you can pretend we're a happy, normal family. He recoiled as if I'd slapped him. She loves them. She would never hurt them. She is hurting them times, through me times, I countered. She has tried to destroy their mother. She has tried to break up their parents' marriage. What part of that is love? A happy, stable mother is the best thing I can give my kids, and I am never stable after being in her orbit. Therefore, she's a threat to my children's well-being. It's that simple. He just stared at me, his face a mess of confusion and anger. The programming ran deep. He saw his mother, the woman who raised him. I saw the monster who had meticulously tried to dismantle my life. They're the ones who will suffer, Sky, he said, his voice pleading. They'll miss out on having a grandmother. They will miss out on being manipulated, I corrected him. They will miss out on being told their mother is garbage. They will miss out on having love offered and then withdrawn on a whim. Believe me, they'll thank me for it later. He turned away and pulled out his phone. I knew what he was going to do. He was going to call her. To explain. To apologize for my behavior. To manage her emotions just like he'd been trained to do his whole life. I didn't say another word. I just watched him for a second, a stranger in our kitchen. Then I turned, walked down the hall, and quietly pushed open the door to my daughter's room. I checked on my other two boys, their small chests rising and falling in the dim glow of their nightlights. My job was to protect them. I went back to the living room and saw him on the couch, phone pressed to his ear, his back to me. Mom, listen. She's just stressed out. I walked right past him, scooped up the baby monitor from the end table, and went into my bedroom. I closed the door, shutting out the sound of his voice. The click of the latch was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of a boundary finally holding. A wall finally being built. My revenge wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a quiet, locked door. It was the simple, brutal, and necessary act of choosing my children and myself over the woman who had tried to burn us all to the ground. The rift between Mark and me was now a canyon, and I didn't know if we'd ever build a bridge to cross it. But for the first time in a decade, I felt safe on my side.
Story 3. Maya and I had been best friends since we were building pillow forts in kindergarten. So when she invited me to her no-theme costume engagement party, I wanted to blow her away. I spent 4 days in my garage, crafting an elaborate corpse bride cosplay complete with blue skin, exposed foam ribs, and a tattered, rotting wedding dress. But when I arrived, her polished, perfectly fake fiancé, David, dropped a bomb on the crowd. It wasn't an engagement party, it was a surprise wedding. Mortified that I was wearing a wedding dress to my best friend's actual wedding, I cornered David and begged to run home to change. Instead, he grabbed my shoulder, looked me in the eye, and explicitly told me to stay, insisting Maya would find it hilarious and be heartbroken if I left. I trusted him only to wake up the next morning to furious friendship-ending texts from Maya, realizing too late that I had walked right into a calculated trap.
The text from Maya came on a Tuesday. Massive news engagement party this Saturday, my place. It's a costume party. Be there. A costume party. Perfect. That's my language. I've known Maya since we were kids, building pillow forts, and now at 19 I was building elaborate cosplays in my garage. She was the one person who got it. She'd sit on a stool for hours, handing me tools and offering opinions on foam armor, while she told me about her life. Lately, it was all about David. David, her fiancé. The guy who always seemed a little too polished. He smiled at all the right times, but it never quite reached his eyes. What's the theme? I texted back. No theme, go nuts, she replied. No theme is a trap. It's a test. You can't just show up as a generic pirate. You have to be clever. And for my best friend's engagement party, clever was the bare minimum. I spent a solid hour brainstorming before it hit me. An engagement party, a wedding adjacent theme, something iconic and a little dramatic. The Corpse Bride. It was perfect. A little gothic, a little funny, and a technical challenge. I already had a base wedding dress from a thrift store haul that I'd been saving for something special. For the next 4 days, I lived in my garage. I shredded the hem of the dress, stained it with tea and gray acrylic paint to look like it had been buried for a century. I molded a rib cage out of foam clay and stitched it into a gaping hole in the side. The veil was the easy part. The makeup was the hardest. It took 3 practice runs to get the exact shade of melancholy blue and the perfect doll-like eyes. By Saturday night, I looked incredible. The dress was a tragic masterpiece, the skeletal arm I'd fashioned looked unnervingly real, and the blue makeup was flawless. I was a walking, talking Tim Burton creation. I couldn't wait for Maya to see it. I got to her house and it was already packed. The place looked amazing, way fancier than I expected, with fairy lights strung up everywhere and people in cocktail dresses mingling with guys in superhero costumes. It was an eclectic mix. I spotted a guy dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow talking to a woman in a sleek black dress, who was clearly not in costume. The no-theme thing really threw people. David saw me first. He was standing near the door, holding a glass of champagne, looking sharp in a tailored suit. His eyes scanned my costume from head to toe. A slow, tight smile spread across his face. "Wow, Grant," he said, his voice smooth as glass. "You really went all out." "You know me," I laughed. "Go big or go home." "Where's Maya? I want to see her reaction." "She's in the garden, making the rounds." "Grab a drink?" "She'll find you." I did just that. For the next hour, I was a hit. People loved the costume. They wanted pictures, they asked how I made the arm, they complimented the makeup. I felt great. I found Maya in the garden, and she shrieked with delight when she saw me. "Grant! Oh my God, you look amazing," she yelled, pulling me into a hug, careful not to smudge my makeup. She was glowing, wearing a simple but beautiful white dress that wasn't a costume at all. "You said go nuts, so I went nuts," I said, spinning to show off the tattered train. "It's perfect. You're insane." "I love it." We chatted for a bit, catching up before she was pulled away by another guest. I settled into the party feeling completely at ease. This was exactly where I was supposed to be celebrating my best friend in the most me way possible. About an hour later, David clinked a champagne flute with a knife. The crowd quieted down, gathering in the living room. Maya joined him at the front, her hand in his. They looked like a magazine cover. "Thank you all so much for coming," David started, his arm wrapped around Maya's waist. "It means the world to us that you're all here to celebrate with us." Maya beamed. "We're so grateful to have you all in our lives, which is why we wanted you to be here for the Times Real Times event." She paused for dramatic effect, looking at David. He took a deep breath, his smile widening. "This isn't an engagement party." A confused murmur rippled through the room. I leaned against a wall, intrigued. "Surprise," they shouted in unison. "It's our wedding. The officiant will be here in 20 minutes. The room exploded. People were cheering, screaming, clapping. My stomach dropped through the floor. The champagne flute in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I looked down at my tattered, stained wedding dress, at my blue skin, at my exposed foam clay ribs. This isn't a costume party. This is a wedding. And I'm in a wedding dress. Panic, cold and sharp, shot through my veins. My clever, relevant costume had just become a monstrous, attention-grabbing insult. I had to fix this. Now, I pushed through the celebrating crowd, my eyes locked on David. Maya was already swarmed by her family, crying happy tears. David was my only option. I grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the kitchen. "David," I whispered, my voice tight. "Oh my God. I had no idea. I am so sorry." He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Sorry for what? It's a party. I'm wearing a wedding dress to your wedding. I have to go change. I live 10 minutes away. I can be back in a real suit before the ceremony even starts. No one will even notice I was gone. I was already planning my escape route. I could sprint home, shower off the blue paint, throw on the one good suit I own, and make it back just in time. It was possible. It was necessary." David put a hand on my shoulder, his grip surprisingly firm. He looked me right in the eye. "Don't," he said. I blinked. "What?" "Don't go," he repeated, his voice calm and steady. "Seriously, man, it's fine. It's hilarious. We told people it was a costume party. You came in a costume. It's not a big deal." "It is a big deal. I can't stand up at your wedding dressed like the corpse bride." "Why not?" He actually chuckled. Maya thought it was great. She'd be more upset if you just left her wedding. Just stay. Enjoy yourself. We want you here just like this. He was the groom. He was telling me explicitly that it was okay, that he and Maya wanted me to stay. My frantic energy deflated, replaced by a wave of awkward relief. I was still mortified, but if the groom himself was telling me not to worry, I had to trust him. "Are you absolutely sure?" I asked one last time. 100%, he said, patting my shoulder. "Now go get another drink. You look like you've seen a ghost." He winked and walked back to his guests. So I stayed. I sat through the ceremony in the back row trying to shrink into myself. I felt every single stare from Maya's great aunts. During the reception, I hovered by the bar, avoiding the dance floor and the wedding photographer like they were the plague. I did what David said. I stayed. I tried to enjoy myself. I watched Maya have the happiest night of her life, and I pushed down the crippling feeling that I was a walking, breathing joke, tainting her perfect day. When it was time to leave, I found Maya and gave her a huge, careful hug. "Congratulations, May. I'm so happy for you." "Thank you for being here, Grant," she said, her eyes shining. She seemed a million miles away, lost in her own happiness, and didn't mention the dress once. I gave David a nod. "Congrats, man." He clapped me on the back. "Thanks for staying," he said with that same tight smile. "Drive safe." I drove home the steering wheel, cool against my blue-painted hands. I felt exhausted, embarrassed, but mostly just glad it was over. I dodged a bullet. David had saved me. In my apartment, I peeled off the skeletal glove and tossed it on my chair. I just wanted to get the makeup off and forget this whole night ever happened. My phone, which had been on silent, was sitting on the counter. As I walked past, the screen lit up. Then it lit up again. And again. A rapid-fire succession of buzzes vibrated across the granite. I picked it up. 3 new messages, all from Maya. The preview on the lock screen was short, sharp, and hit me like a punch to the gut. "What the hell is wrong with you?" My fingers fumbled as I unlocked the phone, the blue makeup smearing a faint streak across the screen. Her full messages loaded in a sickening cascade. Maya times, "What the hell is wrong with you?" asterisk. Maya times, "To wear a wedding dress to my wedding." "Are you that desperate for attention?" asterisk. Maya times, "You couldn't let me have one day. One day that wasn't about you and your stupid costumes. You've humiliated me. You've humiliated David." Asterisk. The words blurred. It felt like a physical blow. I immediately hit her contact and called. It rang once before going to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. My heart hammered against my ribs, the ones made of foam clay I'd so carefully crafted. I typed a reply, my hands shaking so badly I had to delete and restart 3 times. Me times, "Maya, what are you talking about? I offered to leave. I begged David to let me go home and change. He told me to stay. He said it was fine, asterisk." The 3 little dots appeared instantly, then vanished. A new message popped up, not from her, but from David. David times, "Hey man. Maya's really upset. You need to apologize. Asterisk. I stared at his text, a cold dread washing over me. This was a nightmare. I forwarded him a screenshot of my last text to Maya. Me times, apologize for what? For listening to you. You need to tell her what happened. Tell her you told me to stay. Asterisk. David times, whoa, hold on. I was trying to be nice. I didn't think you'd actually stick around for the ceremony looking like that. You put me in an impossible spot. I couldn't exactly kick my wife's best friend out of our wedding. Asterisk. The gaslighting was so blatant, so absolute, it stole my breath. He was twisting his explicit instructions into a vague gesture of politeness. He was painting me as the socially inept weirdo who couldn't take a hint. Me times, that is a lie. You were specific. You said, don't go. You said it was hilarious and that Maya would be more upset if I left. You know you did. Asterisk. David Times, look, you made a scene, I tried to manage it, and now my wife is crying on our wedding night. This is on you, Grant. You caused this. You owe her an apology. We need you to just leave us alone right now. Asterisk. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard full of furious, useless words. What could I even say? He had his story, and he was sticking to it. Before I could type another letter, a final message came through from Maya. Maya, times David. Just told me everything. How you refused to leave when he asked you to. I can't believe you would lie to me like this. On top of everything else, I'm done. Lose my number. Asterisk. I tried to reply a frantic jumble of, he's lying to you, but the message failed to send. A small red exclamation point appeared next to it. Message failed to deliver. I went to her profile. Blocked. I switched to David's. Blocked. Just like that, I was gone. Cut out. Erased. I sank onto my couch, still in the dress, the cheap lace, scratching my skin. The blue makeup felt like a mask of shame I couldn't take off. My best friend since kindergarten, the girl who knew every secret I had, thought I was a monster. And her new husband, the man I had trusted, had orchestrated the whole thing. The next few days were a gray, silent blur. I scrubbed the blue paint from my skin until it was raw. I took the corpse bride dress, the skeletal arm, the veil, all of it, and shoved it into a black trash bag in the back of my closet. Every time my phone buzzed with a notification from someone else, my stomach lurched with the false hope that it was her. It never was. The silence from her was louder than any argument we'd ever had. On Thursday evening, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize, but the text was unmistakable. It's Maya. Can we talk? I called the number instantly. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was flat, hollowed out. Hi. Maya, I breathed a mix of relief and anger swirling in my gut. Are you okay? What happened? I'm not home, she said, her voice cracking. I'm at my sister's place. Why? What's going on? There was a long pause, then a shaky sigh. Because you were right, Grant. You were telling the truth. I weighted my knuckles white on the phone. For 2 days, she began, I believed him. I was so angry, so hurt. I couldn't understand how you could be so cruel. David told me he'd pulled you aside and quietly asked you to change, and that you'd laughed it off, saying the invitation said go nuts, and that you weren't leaving. He made you sound so arrogant. My throat tightened. That's not what happened. I know, she whispered. But something felt off. The way he told the story was too perfect. Too practiced. So yesterday, I called my cousin Sarah. She was standing by the kitchen when you two were talking. She heard everything. My mind flashed back to the party. I remembered seeing people milling around, but I was in too much of a panic to notice who. Sarah said she heard you pleading with him, Maya continued, her voice gaining a sharp edge of anger. She heard you say you lived 10 minutes away and could be back in a suit. And she heard David, clear as day, tell you, don't go. It's fine. We want you here just like this. The validation was a hollow victory. It didn't fix the agony of the past few days. I confronted him with it last night, she said. He tried to deny it, said Sarah, must have misheard. But then I told him I'd also spoken to Mark, the guy in the pirate costume, who saw the whole exchange. That's when David... He broke. She took a shaky breath. He admitted everything, Grant. Everything. This wasn't an accident. It was a plan. He's been jealous of us for 5 years. He told me he hates how you and I have a history he can't be a part of. He hates that I tell you things I don't tell him. He thought if he could just make you look like a selfish asshole, I would finally cut you out of my life for good. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The no-theme party. The way his eyes raked over my costume. His smooth, easy dismissal of my panic. The perfectly constructed lie. It was a 5-year-long resentment culminating in a single devastating act of sabotage. He saw your costume, Maya choked out a sob, finally breaking through, and he knew he'd hit the jackpot. It was the perfect trap. And I walked right into it. Maya, I'm so sorry, I said, but the words felt stupid and small. It's not your fault, she said fiercely. It's his. I married a man who built our wedding day on a lie designed to destroy my oldest friendship. I looked at him last night and I didn't recognize him. The trust is... It's not just broken, Grant. It's gone. It was never even there. We sat in silence for a moment, the chasm David had created stretching between our two phones. He hadn't just tried to ruin a friendship. He'd poisoned his own marriage from the very first minute. He got what he wanted, a fight that might end our friendship, but the fallout had incinerated his entire world. What are you going to do? I asked quietly. I don't know, she said, her voice weary. I just know I can't go home. Not now. Maybe not ever.
Story 4.
I, 32 male, was supposed to get married 16 days ago. Instead, I'm sitting in what was supposed to be our apartment, alone, writing this because I genuinely don't know how else to process what happened. Let me back up. I met my ex-fiancée 4 years ago at a conference for work. She was in marketing. I'm in supply chain management. We hit it off immediately. She was sharp, funny, could hold a conversation about anything. By our third date, I knew I was in trouble. The good kind, or so I thought. We moved in together after 18 months. Got engaged a year after that. The wedding planning took another 14 months because she wanted a real wedding, 200 guests, open bar, live band, the works. Her parents offered to cover half the costs if we used their preferred vendors. My parents are deceased, so I was funding my half solo. All in, we were looking at around $68,000 for everything. My contribution was roughly $34,000, most of which was non-refundable deposits. Important detail, her ex-boyfriend. They dated for 3 years in their mid-20s. According to her, he was emotionally unavailable and couldn't commit. She ended things, moved on, met me. He got engaged to someone else about a year after we started dating. I never thought much about him. Ancient history, right? 3 months before the wedding, I noticed she was being weird with her phone. Not hiding it exactly, but protective. Turning it face down. Taking it to the bathroom. Laughing at texts. And then saying it was just her cousin. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not going to pretend I didn't do it. One night while she was in the shower, I checked her phone. I know. But my gut was screaming and I couldn't ignore it anymore. What I found, a conversation thread with her ex, hundreds of messages going back 2 months. The tone wasn't friendly. It was intimate. Pet names. I miss you. I think about you constantly. Why didn't we work harder to make it work? And then the message that made my stomach drop. I don't know if I can go through with it, but I can't back out now. Everyone's expecting this. My parents would disown me. His response: "You know where I am when you're ready." I put the phone back, went to bed, didn't sleep. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I needed to think, to plan. Because calling off a wedding 3 months out would cost me tens of thousands of dollars in deposits. But more than that, I needed to know if this was a moment of doubt or something deeper. So I waited and watched. Over the next 3 months, I checked her phone maybe 4 more times. The conversations continued. They met for coffee twice. She told me she was seeing her college roommate both times. I confirmed she was lying by checking her location sharing, which she'd forgotten was still active on our shared family plan. 2 weeks before the wedding, the messages got more intense. He told her he was having doubts about his own marriage. She said she was too. They talked about what could have been. She sent him photos of her wedding dress with the caption, "This should have been for you." I screenshotted everything, saved it to a cloud folder, kept my face neutral, kept planning the wedding. Here's the thing people don't understand about betrayal. The moment you discover it, a part of you detaches. You're still there, going through the motions, but there's this cold, observational version of yourself watching from distance. That version was making plans while the emotional version was drowning. The morning of the wedding, I woke up at 6 a.m. Ceremony was at 2 p.m. I got dressed, went to the venue early to check on setup. Everything was perfect. White chairs, flower arrangements, the art she'd obsessed over for months. At 12:15 p.m., my phone rang. It was her. "I can't go through with this." Her voice was shaky. Crying maybe. I stood in the groom's suite, looking at myself in the mirror, already in my suit. "Why not?" I asked. "Calm. Too calm, probably. I'm not sure anymore. About us. About everything. I'm so sorry. I know this is terrible timing. I know. Thank you for your honesty," I said. And I meant it. After 3 months of lies, at least she was finally being honest about something. She went silent. I think she expected me to argue, to beg, to ask what she needed. Instead, I said, "Guests are already arriving. What do you want me to tell them?" "I don't know. I don't know. Can you just handle it? Tell them I'm sick or something." "I'll handle it," I said, and hung up. I sat with that for about 10 minutes. My best man came in, saw my face, asked what was wrong. I told him, showed him some of the screenshots. He went pale. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to handle it." At 2 p.m., I walked to the altar. 200 people were seated. Her family on one side, my friends and extended family on the other. Her parents were in the front row, beaming. Her maid of honor was standing up front, looking confused because the bride wasn't there. I stepped up to the microphone we'd set up for the ceremony. "Thank you all for coming. I know you're expecting a wedding today. Unfortunately, there isn't going to be one." Murmurs. Gasps. Her mother's face went from confused to concerned. About 2 hours ago, my fiancée called me to say she couldn't go through with this. I want to be clear. This isn't a case of cold feet. This is a case of her having an ongoing emotional affair with her ex-boyfriend for the past 3 months. I have the messages. I have the proof. Dead silence now. Her father stood up. What the hell are you doing? I'm telling the truth. Something your daughter hasn't done in months. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the venue's projection system, something we'd set up for a slideshow during the reception. I'd prepared a presentation. 6 screenshots. The most damning ones. Her telling him she wished her wedding dress was for him. Him saying he'd leave his wife if she said the word. Her saying she was only going through with the wedding because she was too embarrassed to back out. I didn't show everything. Just enough. Her mother started crying. Not the "my poor daughter" crying. The "oh my God, this is really happening" crying. Her father looked like he wanted to hit me, but couldn't decide if I deserved it. The maid of honor ran out. Probably to find my ex-fiancé. I turned off the projection. I'm sorry you all travel here for nothing. The bar is paid for through 6 p.m. if anyone wants to stay. I'm going home. And I left. My best man drove me back to the apartment. I sat on the couch and didn't move for about 3 hours. My phone exploded. Messages from everyone. Her family calling me every name imaginable. Some of my family saying I went too far. A few friends saying they couldn't believe what they'd witnessed. And one text from her ex's wife. Is this real? Please tell me this isn't real. I sent her the full folder. Update 1. 4 days later. So the fallout has been significant. Let me start with the immediate aftermath. That night, my ex-fiancée showed up at the apartment. She'd been at her parents' house, apparently, having a complete meltdown after the maid of honor told her what I did. She didn't knock. Just used her key and walked in. I was sitting on the couch. Hadn't moved much, still in my dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. How could you do that to me? She screamed. Actually screamed. In front of everyone. In front of my family. I looked at her. How could you do what you did? For 3 months? While I was planning our wedding. That's different. I was confused. I was having doubts. That doesn't give you the right to humiliate me. You were sexting your ex and telling him your wedding dress should have been for him. That's not confusion. That's betrayal. She started crying. The ugly kind. Sat down on the floor because her legs gave out. I didn't sleep with him. Nothing physical happened. I was going to end it. I was going to go through with the wedding and cut him off completely. And I was supposed to just marry you not knowing any of this? Live my life with someone who was emotionally checked out? That's what you wanted for me. She didn't have an answer for that. I told her to take what she needed and leave. She grabbed some clothes, her laptop, and toiletries. Left her key on the counter without me asking. The next few days were a blur of texts and calls. Her mother called me 3 times. First call was pure rage. How dare I embarrass her daughter, ruin her reputation, air dirty laundry in public. Second call was more measured, asking if we could talk, if there was a way to fix this narrative. Third call, I answered. What do you want? I asked. I want to understand why you did it that way. You could have just called it off. said she was sick. Anything else. Because she asked me to lie for her. To tell everyone she was sick. To cover up for her so she could walk away clean while I looked like the jilted group. After 3 months of her lying to my face, I wasn't going to do that. She was quiet for a long time. Then I didn't know. About the messages. I didn't know what she was doing. Most people don't know when someone's lying to them. I didn't either. Until I did. She hung up. Didn't call again. Her father was a different story. He showed up at my workplace. Just walked into the lobby and asked to see me. Security called up, and my boss, who'd heard the basics by then, asked if I wanted him escorted out. I said no. Went down to meet him. He looked tired. Older than I remembered. "I'm not here to yell at you," he said. "I'm here because I need to know something. Was any of it real? Did you ever actually love my daughter? Or was this whole thing a setup to humiliate her?" That one stung. Because I did love her. More than I'd ever loved anyone. I spent $34,000 on a wedding for a woman I wanted to spend my life with. I found out 3 months ago she was emotionally cheating on me. I stayed quiet because I was trying to figure out if it was real or just pre-wedding jitters. It was real. She was planning to leave me for him eventually. And when she finally admitted she couldn't go through with it, she asked me to lie to 200 people to protect her image. I wasn't going to do that. He nodded slowly. "I'm not going to apologize for her. What you did was wrong. But what you did, that was cruel. Maybe. But it was honest." And after 3 months of lies, honesty was the only thing I had left. He left without another word. Meanwhile, the ex-boyfriend's wife. She's been in contact with me. Turns out she had no idea about any of this. Her husband told her he was reconnecting with an old friend, and she thought nothing of it. When I sent her the screenshots, she confronted him. He admitted to everything. They're separating. She thanked me for telling her. Said she'd rather know than live in ignorance. At least someone got closure. As for the money, I'm out about $28,000 in non-refundable deposits. The venue, the catering, the florist, the photographer who showed up and took pictures of an empty altar. Her parents are refusing to cover their half now, saying I sabotaged the wedding. My lawyer says I could sue for their portion, but honestly, I don't have the energy. I'd rather just eat the loss and move on. Some of the vendors were sympathetic. The band refunded half their deposit because the lead singer said he'd never heard of anything like this before and felt bad. Small mercies. My ex has been posting on social media. Vague stuff about surviving narcissistic abuse and knowing your worth after someone tries to destroy you. Her friends are commenting support. A few mutual acquaintances have unfollowed me, probably believing her version. I haven't posted anything. Haven't defended myself publicly. The people who were there know what happened. The people who weren't can believe whatever they want. Update 2. 2 weeks later. Things have escalated in ways I didn't expect. First, my ex hired a lawyer. Not to sue me. Apparently what I did doesn't meet the legal threshold for defamation since everything I said was true. but to send me a cease and desist letter demanding I refrain from further distribution of private communications. Translation: she's scared I'm going to post the screenshots online. I wasn't planning to. The wedding reveal was enough. But now I have a formal legal document telling me not to do something I wasn't going to do anyway. My lawyer responded with a polite acknowledgement and pointed out that the messages in question were evidence of infidelity that occurred during our engagement, and that I had no obligation to protect her privacy regarding conduct that directly affected me. Her lawyer didn't respond. Second, her family has been busy. Her brother showed up at a bar where my friends and I sometimes hang out. Didn't approach me directly, just sat at the other end and stared. My buddy noticed and asked if we should leave. I said no. We're not doing anything wrong. After about an hour, he walked over. You ruined her life. You know that? She can't show her face anywhere. People at her job found out. Her friends are treating her different. All because you couldn't handle rejection like a man. I took a sip of my beer. She ruined her own life by having an emotional affair while planning a wedding. I just didn't cover for her. You could have been decent about it. You could have kept it private. She could have not cheated. We all make choices. He looked like he wanted to throw a punch. My friend stood up. He backed off, muttered something about karma, and left. I told my buddies I didn't want to come back to that bar for a while. Not worth the drama. Third thing, and this is the one that actually got to me. I ran into her aunt at a grocery store. Completely random. She was in the produce section. I was grabbing milk. We made eye contact. This aunt had always been nice to me. She'd given us a beautiful hand-knitted blanket as an engagement gift. Told me once that she was glad her niece had finally found a good one. She walked over slowly. I braced myself for another confrontation. Instead, she said, "I'm not going to pretend I understand why you did it the way you did. But I read those messages." She showed them to the family, trying to make it seem like you took things out of context. She didn't realize some of us would actually read them. She paused. What she did was wrong. And I think you deserve better than to find out like that. I'm sorry it happened. That cracked something in me. I've been holding it together for weeks, running on cold logic and justified anger. But genuine sympathy from an unexpected source broke through. I thanked her. She touched my arm briefly and walked away. Cried in my car for about 15 minutes after that. First time since everything happened. Fourth, the ex-boyfriend situation. His wife officially filed for divorce. She's been keeping me updated, not in a weird way, but in a we're both casualties of the same mess kind of way. Apparently, he tried to blame me for manufacturing evidence and manipulating his wife. When that didn't work, he tried to claim he and my ex were just talking and that the romantic stuff was taken out of context. His wife showed him the message where my ex said the wedding dress should have been for him. What context makes that okay? She asked him. He didn't have an answer. Here's the part that really got me, though. According to his wife, after everything blew up, my ex reached out to him. Asked if they could finally be together now that everything's out in the open. He said no. told her the fantasy was over, that he wasn't going to leave his stable life for someone who'd been lying to everyone, that he needed to focus on saving his marriage. She got dumped by the guy she blew up her life for, the guy who'd been telling her for months that he'd be there when she was ready. I'd feel bad for her if she hadn't put me through hell. The ex-boyfriend's wife didn't save the marriage, by the way. She said his cowardice at the end, trying to blame everyone else and then not even following through with my ex, showed her exactly who he was. I'd rather be alone than with someone who can't even commit to his own betrayal, she told me. Respect. Final update. 3 weeks later. I'm writing this final update because there's been a resolution of sorts, and I think the story needs an ending. First, the financial stuff. My ex's family finally agreed to reimburse their half of the wedding costs. Not because they felt bad. Her father made that clear. But because their lawyer apparently advised them that if I pursued it legally, the screenshots would become part of discovery and therefore public record. They paid up to avoid further embarrassment. So I'm out about $14,000 instead of $28,000. Still a lot, but manageable. I'm treating it as the cost of learning who I was actually engaged to. Second, the apartment. She officially moved out. Came by with her cousin while I was at work. Took all her stuff. Left a note that said, "I hope one day you understand that what you did was just as wrong as what I did." I threw it away. I understand plenty. The lease renewal is coming up. I'm not staying here. Too many memories. Found a one-bedroom closer to downtown. Smaller, but it's mine. Moving next weekend. Third, and this is the part I've been processing for days. My ex asked to meet. Sent a text saying she needed closure and wanted to talk. One last time. Without lawyers or family involved. I almost said no. But something in me wanted to hear what she had to say. Maybe for my own closure. We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. Like she'd been through something. Which I suppose she had. She sat down and started immediately. I'm not here to apologize. I mean, I am sorry. But I know an apology isn't going to fix anything. I just needed you to know that I didn't plan for any of this to happen. The messages didn't write themselves. I know. But it started as just talking. We ran into each other randomly. And it was like no time had passed. I told myself it was harmless. That I could have my old feelings and my new life at the same time. You told him your wedding dress should have been for him. That's not harmless. She winced. I know how it looks. I was confused. I was terrified of making the wrong choice. And instead of talking to you about it, I ran to someone familiar. You could have talked to me at any point. You could have told me you were having doubts. I would have listened. Would you? Really? 3 months before our wedding, if I'd said, "I'm not sure about us," would you have actually heard that? Or would you have tried to fix it and convince me everything was fine? That landed harder than I expected. Because honestly, I don't know. I like to think I would have listened, but maybe she's right. Maybe I would have gone into problem-solving mode instead of actually hearing her. That doesn't excuse what you did, I said finally. No, it doesn't. But I needed you to know it wasn't about not loving you. It was about being too scared to be honest until it was too late. I sat with that for a minute. The way you ended things, calling me 2 hours before the ceremony, asking me to lie to everyone, that's what I can't forgive. You were going to let me stand up there and tell 200 people you had the flu. Make me complicit in your lie. I know. I panicked. I wasn't thinking about you in that moment. I was thinking about myself. That's the part I'm most ashamed of. She didn't ask me to forgive her. Didn't ask if we could be friends. Just said what she needed to say and waited. I hope you figure out what you actually want, I said. Because it wasn't me. And apparently it wasn't him either. She nodded. He told me he couldn't leave his wife, even after she filed for divorce. Said it was too complicated now that everything was public. Sounds like he was never going to choose you. No, he wasn't. I see that now. She finished her coffee, gathered her things. For what it's worth, you were a good partner. I was just too broken to appreciate it. She left. I sat there for another hour, thinking. Here's the thing about this whole mess. I don't feel like the hero of this story. Some people have called me brave for exposing her at the altar. Others have called me cruel. The truth is somewhere in between. I was hurt and angry, and I made a choice that maximized her consequences while giving me the satisfaction of not lying for her. Was it the right choice? I honestly don't know. Some days I feel vindicated. Other days I wonder if I could have handled it differently. More privately. Less publicly. But then I remember the way she asked me to lie. The way she spent 3 months choosing someone else while planning a future with me. And I think, no. She made her choices. I made mine. We both have to live with them. I'm moving into the new apartment next weekend. Already bought a new couch. Signed up for a cooking class because I've been eating takeout for a month and my body is starting to protest. The ex-boyfriend's wife texted me yesterday. Said her divorce is moving forward and she's doing okay. We might grab lunch sometime. Not romantic. Just two people who got blindsided by the same situation, finding some weird solidarity. My friends have been solid. They don't bring it up unless I do, but they're there. That matters more than I expected. I'm not happy yet, but I'm not drowning either. Just existing day by day, figuring out who I am without the life I thought I was building. Someone told me that the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. I'm not there yet with my ex, but I can feel myself moving toward it. Slowly. One day, she'll just be someone I used to know. For now, that's enough.
Story 4.
I, 32 male, teach high school English. Have for 8 years now. I love it. Yeah. The pay isn't executive money, but I make decent enough, around $58,000 after my master's bump. I coach the debate team, run the literary magazine, and genuinely enjoy watching kids discover they actually like books when given the right ones. My fiancée and I had been together for 4 years, engaged for 1. We met at a friend's birthday party. She works in pharmaceutical sales, makes good money, around $95,000 with bonuses. From the start, she knew what I did. I never pretended to be anything else. Last month, we were supposed to be finalizing wedding plans. Venue booked. Deposit down, save the date sent. Then came the dinner party. Her college friend group has this monthly thing where couples rotate hosting. Her friends are married to a VP of marketing, a financial analyst, and a tech startup guy. Nice enough people, I guess, but every gathering felt like a competition I didn't know I'd entered. That night, her friend's husband was bragging about his Tesla Model S Plaid. Another was talking about their ski trip to Aspen. When someone asked about our honeymoon plans, I mentioned we were thinking about a road trip through national parks, something I'd always wanted to do. The silence was awkward. Her friend's husband made a comment about roughing it, and everyone laughed. My fiancée laughed too. Harder than she should have. On the drive home, she was quiet. Too quiet. When we got back to her apartment, she sat me down. The speech she'd clearly been rehearsing came out. I've been thinking about this for a while. I can't marry you. I'm sorry, but you're just a teacher. My friends' husbands are all executives, partners, people who are going somewhere. I love you, but love isn't enough. I need someone who can give me the life I want. Some of my friends respect. I sat there for probably 30 seconds. Just processing. What about the wedding? The deposits? The house fund? We can figure that out later. This is hard for me too. The house fund. Right? That was $34,000 I've been saving for 3 years. Money I'd put into a dedicated savings account for our future home down payment. She'd contributed exactly $0. Always having some reason. Car payment, student loans, that designer bag she needed for work. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized something. I wasn't heartbroken. I was relieved. The knot in my stomach I'd been carrying for months, the one I'd blamed on wedding stress, suddenly made sense. I understand, I said. She blinked. That's it? You understand? Yeah. I understand. I stood up, took the engagement ring from where she'd placed it on the coffee table. She'd already taken it off, I noticed. Put it in my pocket. That's my ring, she said. Actually, it's mine until we're married, which we're not going to be. You can't just take it. Watch me. I walked out, drove home, felt weirdly calm, like a fog had lifted. The next morning, I got to work. The ring. Took it back to the jeweler. Original purchase price was $4,200. They offered me $2,800 for buyback, since it was custom. Not ideal, but I took it. Cash in hand. The house fund. Already entirely in my name. Transferred it to my regular checking account. $34,000 available immediately. The wedding deposits. Here's where it got complicated. The venue deposit was $3,500, and the contract was in both our names. I called them, explained the situation. They were sympathetic, but said cancellations required both parties or forfeiture. I sent my ex-fiancé a text. We need to cancel the venue. Please sign the cancellation form. Her response, I'm not signing anything. You can lose your half. My half. Interesting, considering I paid the entire deposit myself. I called the venue back. Explained she was being difficult. The coordinator, bless her, said technically the person who paid could dispute it. I sent over my credit card statement. After some back and forth with their manager, they agreed to refund me $2,500, minus their administrative fee. Good enough. The photographer deposit, $800, was in my name only. Got that back in full after explaining the situation. Same with the DJ, $400. Total recovered, around $6,500 plus the house fund. That Friday, I booked a solo trip to Italy. 2 weeks. Rome, Florence, Venice. Business class flights. I'd never flown anything but economy in my life. Nice hotels. Michelin star restaurants I'd always wanted to try. Cost me about $8,000 total. Still had over $30,000 in savings. As a teacher, because I live within my means and don't need a Tesla to feel like a man, I posted one picture on social media from the Colosseum. Caption: sometimes the best journeys start when you stop going in the wrong direction. Vague enough, but everyone who knew. My phone blew up. Her friends reaching out saying I was petty. Her sister texting that I was making her look bad. My ex herself calling me an immature little boy who couldn't handle rejection gracefully. I blocked them all. Order another glass of Chianti. Watch the sunset over Rome. Being just a teacher felt pretty good right about that. Update 1. 3 weeks later. Got back from Italy feeling like a new person. Tan, rested, and weirdly optimistic. Unpacked. Did laundry. Prep for the new school year. Then the messages started. Apparently, my ex had been telling everyone a very different version of events. According to her, I blindsided her by breaking off the engagement because I was intimidated by her success. I had stolen the house fund that was supposed to be both of ours. I had manipulated her into giving back the ring. Her mother called my mother. That was fun. My mom, bless her heart, told her exactly where she could direct her concerns and hung up. But the real entertainment came when my ex's friends started reaching out. Not to me, to people we mutually knew, trying to piece together my side because they were concerned about her. My buddy, who's married to one of her college friends, gave me the full report over beers. Dude, she's spiraling. Apparently, she thought you'd fight for her. Beg her to reconsider. She told everyone you two were just taking a break while you figure things out. Then you posted from Italy and she lost it. She broke up with me because I'm just a teacher. Yeah. She's spinning that differently. Saying she suggested couples counseling and you refused. There was no counseling suggestion. She sat me down and told me I wasn't successful enough. Literally said her friends' husbands were executives and I wasn't going anywhere. His face went through several emotions. She said that. Word for word. I can't marry you. You're just a teacher. He shook his head. Bro, I knew she could be shallow, but that's rough. The following week, things got messy, eh? I got a letter from a lawyer. Her lawyer. Demanding the return of shared assets, including $17,000 representing her equitable share of the house fund, plus the engagement ring. I almost laughed. Almost. Called my buddy who does contract law. He reviewed everything over lunch. This is nonsense, he said. The savings account was solely in your name. You made all the deposits. There's no written agreement establishing joint ownership. And the ring? In this state, it's a conditional gift. Condition wasn't met. It's yours. So what do I do? I'll send a response letter explaining why her claims have no merit. If she actually wants to sue, she's welcome to waste money she doesn't have. My guess. This is a scare tactic. Cost me $300 for his time. Worth it. His letter went out. Response from her lawyer? Nothing. Radio silence. Bluff called. But she wasn't done. The next Saturday, I was in my usual coffee shop grading papers when she walked in. Not a coincidence. I'd mentioned this place to her plenty of times. She happened to be there with her sister. She spotted me. Made a beeline for my table. We need to talk. I don't think we do. You got a lawyer involved? Seriously? This is what we've become. You sent me a lawyer letter demanding $17,000 I don't owe you. What did you expect? Her sister chimed in. She's just trying to get what's fair. You two were building a life together. Were we? Because she told me I was just a teacher and she needed someone her friends would respect. The sister's face flickered. Apparently that detail hadn't made it into her version. That's not exactly what I said. My ex started. That's exactly what you said. Word for word. I remember because it was the moment I realized I'd wasted 4 years on someone who never actually respected me. She went red. I was stressed. Wedding planning is overwhelming and you weren't helping. I paid for everything. Every single deposit. The house fund? All me. The ring? Me. You contributed nothing financially and then told me I wasn't successful enough. Her sister actually stepped back. Wait. You didn't put anything into the house fund. That's not the point. It kind of is the point when you're demanding half of it. My ex grabbed her sister's arm. Let's go. He's obviously not going to be reasonable. I'm being very reasonable. I'm not giving you money that was never yours. She stormed out. Her sister followed, looking less certain than when they arrived. I went back to grading papers. Finished my coffee. The barista, who'd witnessed the whole thing, brought me a free muffin. Rough day. Getting better. Actually, update 2, 3 months later. The school year started. Fall semester always reminds me why I do this job. New batch of juniors convinced they hate literature until you hand them something that actually speaks to them. Watching that transformation never gets old. I've been focusing on work, friends, life. Dating wasn't really on my radar. Then the debate team had their first tournament. I ran into someone. She was there as a judge. Turned out she's on staff at the university hospital and volunteers for high school academic events when her schedule allows. We got to talking during a break. She asked what I taught. I braced for the usual reaction. English? Oh wow, that's amazing. Those teachers made the biggest impact on me growing up. No condescension. No, that's nice with a subtle pity. Genuine interest. We exchanged numbers. Grabbed coffee the next week. Then dinner. Then more dinners. She's a resident pediatric surgery. Absolutely brutal hours, insane pressure. And she chose to spend her rare free time judging high school debates because she thinks it's important. Third date. She asked about my previous relationship. I gave her the short version. She said you weren't successful enough because you're a teacher. Pretty much. She laughed. Not mockingly. Like she genuinely couldn't believe it. I make 3 times what my attending did at my age, and I'm miserable half the time. You know what I'd give to have a job where I actually enjoy going to work? Where I help people without watching some of them die. It's not that simple, Dash. It literally is that simple. Money isn't success. Success is waking up and not dreading your day. You have that. Most people don't. I didn't know what to say. So I just kissed her. She kissed back. Meanwhile, my ex's life was apparently not going according to plan. Through the grapevine, my buddy again. I learned that her perfect friend group had started fracturing. The financial analyst's marriage was struggling. Turns out his 80-hour weeks meant he was never home. The startup guy's company tanked, and he got laid off. The VP of marketing? Having an affair with his assistant. The dinner party stopped. The comparison Olympics ended. And my ex? She'd been dating a portfolio manager she met at a networking event. Tall, expensive suits, drove a BMW. Everything she thought she wanted. He dumped her after 6 weeks. Apparently, he was emotionally unavailable and only interested in her looks. Shocking that a guy who measures success by salary might be shallow in other ways too. Then came the run-in. Christmas party at my buddy's house. I brought my girlfriend. We'd been together about 2 months at that point, but it felt solid. Easy in a way my previous relationship never was. My ex was there. I didn't know she'd been invited. She was still friends with my buddy's wife through a mutual connection. The moment we walked in, I felt her stare. My girlfriend, beautiful in a simple green dress. Her hospital ID badge still clipped to her bag because she comes straight from shift. My buddy's wife, trying to be helpful, made introductions. And this is, well, you two know each other. And this is his new girlfriend. My girlfriend, professionally gracious, extended her hand. Nice to meet you. My ex shook it weakly. Same, What do you do? I'm a surgical resident. Pediatrics. The look on my ex's face was something I'll remember forever. Not because it was satisfying in a petty way, though it was, but because I watched her entire worldview collapse in real time. The teacher she rejected for not being successful enough was now with a doctor. A surgeon. Someone who, by her own metric, was more respectable than any of her friends' executive husbands. That's nice, she managed. My girlfriend smiled warmly. Thanks. I'm mostly just trying not to pass out from exhaustion during 36-hour shifts. He's the impressive one, actually making a difference in kids' lives while they're awake enough to appreciate it. She squeezed my hand. My ex looked like she'd swallowed something sour. We moved on. Mingled. Had a good time. I didn't go out of my way to interact with my ex, but I didn't avoid her either. She was just there. A person I used to know. As we were leaving, my ex caught me alone by the coat rack. She seems nice. She is. You moved on fast. 6 months isn't fast. It's healthy. She hesitated. I've been thinking about what I said. Maybe I was too harsh, Dash. You weren't harsh. You were honest. You told me exactly what you valued and what you didn't. I just didn't fit. No hard feelings. I didn't mean it like Dash. Yes, you did. And that's okay. You saved us both from a marriage that wouldn't have worked. I'm grateful, actually. My girlfriend appeared with our coats. Ready to go. I'm on call in 6 hours and I desperately need sleep. Yeah. Let's go. I turned to my ex. Take care of yourself. We left. Cold air, clear sky, her hand in mine. That was the ex, wasn't it? How'd you guess? The way she looked at you. Like she was doing math and not liking the answer. Probably trying to figure out how just a teacher ended up with a doctor. She laughed and pulled me closer. Please. I ended up with you. I got lucky. We walked to my car. Nothing fancy. A Honda Civic I bought used 5 years ago. She'd never once commented on it. Hey, she said before I started the engine. That house fund you mentioned once. You still have it. Most of it. What? Just thinking. My lease is up in 4 months. Maybe we could start looking at places. Together. I looked at her. This brilliant, exhausted, genuine person who thought I was the impressive one. Yeah. I'd like that. Final update. 6 months later. We bought a house. Nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms, decent yard, good school district, occupational habit. Split the down payment 50-50 because she insisted, even though I had more saved. We're partners, she said. That means equal. The contrast still hits me sometimes. 4 years with my ex, and she never contributed $1 to our supposed future home. 4 months into seriously dating my girlfriend, and she was calculating exactly how to make things fair. Moving day was chaos. Her colleagues from a hospital showed up to help, along with some of my teacher friends. Someone brought a cooler of beer. Someone else ordered pizza. It felt like a community, not a competition. That night, lying on a mattress on the floor, furniture delivery was delayed. She turned to me. "You happy?" "Yeah. Really happy." "Good. Me too." Simple. Honest. No games, no performance. No measuring ourselves against anyone else's standards. I found out through the grapevine what happened with my ex. Her sister, surprisingly, reached out to apologize about 6 weeks ago. Said she learned more about what really happened and felt bad about how she'd acted at the coffee shop. According to her, my ex never really recovered from the Christmas party encounter. Kept talking about how unfair it was that I'd upgraded so quickly. Went through 2 more failed relationships with guys who looked good on paper, but treated her poorly. Last her sister heard, she'd moved to another state for a job that paid less but had better work-life balance. Apparently, the whole experience made her reevaluate something. Whether that's true growth or just a convenient narrative, I don't know and honestly don't care. What I do know is this. When she told me I was just a teacher, she meant it as an insult. A dismissal of everything I am and everything I've chosen to be. But here's the thing about being just a teacher. I get to watch kids discover that they have voices worth hearing. I get to come home at a reasonable hour to someone who loves me for exactly who I am. I get to save money, travel when I want, live without the anxiety of keeping up appearances. My ex wanted someone her friends would respect. She ended up alone, chasing approval from people whose own lives were falling apart. I wanted someone who'd respect me. I found her. The house fund I spent 3 years building. It bought us a home where neither of us has to pretend to be something we're not. The ring I returned? The money went toward a better one. She said yes last month. Small ceremony plan. No competition, no performance. Just us and the people we actually like. My ex was right about one thing. Love isn't enough. You also need respect. Shared values. Someone who sees your worth, not your salary. She just didn't realize she was describing everything she wasn't. I'm still just a teacher. And I've never been happier. Story 5.
It was a regular Tuesday night in our Nashville house. The smell of rosemary chicken filled the kitchen. The fireplace glowed low behind me. The air should have felt peaceful. Instead, my wife Angela slammed her fork down with a loud clink against her plate. "I'm tired of pretending, Mark. You're a burden to this family. Always have been." The words cut through the calm. I looked up slowly from my plate, careful not to react too fast. A burden. She crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair. "You don't bring anything to the table anymore. You just exist like a roommate who doesn't pull his weight." I wiped my mouth with a napkin, set it gently beside my plate, and met her eyes. I paid off this house. I covered every college bill for Emma. I built the entire garage with my own 2 hands. I've spent the last 28 years providing for you. That wasn't enough, she snapped, eyes narrowing. You think throwing money around makes you a man? You're dull. You stop trying. You have no ambition left. From the other end of the table came a soft gasp. Emma, our daughter, had been quietly scrolling through her phone. Now she was frozen, her face pale. Mom, what are you even saying? She asked, voice trembling. Angela shot her a glare. Stay out of this. Emma stood up. No, I won't. This is ridiculous. Emma, you're attacking him for what? Being consistent? For staying? For working hard all these years while you redecorated the house for the third time and hosted book clubs you never read a page for? Angela's mouth parted, stunned. She hadn't expected resistance. Not from Emma. I mean it, Mom. You don't get to rewrite the past just because you're restless now. Silence fell like a curtain. The only sound was the faint tick of the wall clock above the mantel. I stayed seated, watching Angela carefully. Something in her expression shifted. Not guilt. Not regret. Something darker. A crack in her perfect mask. I see how it is, she muttered coldly. You've turned her against me now, too. I haven't turned anyone, I said quietly. She just has eyes. Angela stood abruptly, grabbing her plate. Her voice was tight. Enjoy your little team. I'm done with dinner. She stormed into the kitchen, heels clicking across the hardwood like gunfire. Emma sat back down slowly, eyes still on me. I'm sorry, Dad. I reached across and squeezed her hand. You don't have anything to apologize for? For a long while, we sat in the glow of the dining room light, surrounded by the mess of what should have been a peaceful family meal. That night changed everything. Not because it was loud, but because it revealed something I couldn't unsee. A mild Saturday morning arrived a few weeks later. Late spring in Nashville. The air felt lazy, and the sun came in soft through clouds. I was outside wiping down my old Ford truck, hands damp from the bucket, when I heard the garage door creak open. Angela stepped out, heels clicking on the concrete, dressed like she was going to brunch. A silk blouse, too much perfume, lips painted the shade of someone about to cause a scene. She didn't say hello. She walked straight to her Lexus, circled it like a car dealer with something to prove, then looked at me, hands on hips. I want a new one, she said, nodding at the Lexus. A new what? A new SUV? I blinked. Something with presence. Bigger. Sleeker. I saw the new Escalade. Pearl white. Gorgeous. That's what I want. I set the rag down slowly. Angela, that car's got less than 20,000 miles on it. It's fine. We're putting money aside for Emma's future. That's the priority. Her lip curled. Of course it is. Everything is always about Emma, isn't it? That one stung. She's our daughter. She's your precious daughter. I straightened up. Nobody asked you to fade. But I'm not buying a $90,000 SUV just so you can outshine the ladies at a tennis mixer. She let out a bitter laugh. You know what your problem is, Mark? You don't think I deserve nice things? Never have. My voice dropped. That's not true, she said, pointing a polished finger. You'd rather die holding on to a dime than ever let me feel admired. You never gave me what I deserve. It's that word. Deserve. Hung in the driveway. Suddenly, Everything felt hollow. The sunlight, the house, even the truck behind me. Angela stormed back toward the garage, heels slamming with every step. Just before she disappeared inside, she tossed one last dagger over her shoulder. It's exhausting being married to someone who dreams small. The side door slammed shut. The house swallowed her whole. I stood there, fingers curled around the rag I'd forgotten to drop, listening to Tom Petty on the radio and wondering when she had become someone I couldn't recognize. Not unhappy, not tired, dash unkind. A few days later, Angela walked in holding a manila envelope. She didn't sit. She placed it in front of me like a waiter setting down a check neither of us wanted to pay. "What's this?" I asked, though I had a sense. "Read it," she said flat. Inside were papers. Legal header. Thick paragraphs. Her name beside mine. Divorce. My stomach didn't drop. It didn't move. I just accepted it, the way you accept a fact you can't change. "Read it now," she said again. "I've spoken to a lawyer. We can keep it clean. You get what's yours. I get what's mine. So, that's it?" I asked. She said it like ordering takeout. "Yes, let's not drag this out. You've already signed these?" She nodded. "Yes. I assumed you'd want to get it over with." I leaned back. The wood creaked under my weight. "You didn't want to talk about it?" "Not even once?" "Mark, let's not drag this out." "No," I said evenly. "You just stopped watering it." Her eyes flinched. The first real crack in her armor, I thought of Emma. The night she stood up for me, even though she knew it might cost her something. Suddenly, I didn't feel broken. I felt calm. "I'll sign," I said, reaching for the pen. No need to make a show of it. I clicked the pen, lowered my eyes. The scratch of ink filled the silence. Her hands fidgeted. She stepped back. "You're taking this surprisingly well." "I learned long ago," I told her. "When someone shows you who they are, don't argue. Just adjust." She paused then. "You're not going to ask me why?" She finally said, voice smaller. "No," I answered. "Because I don't think the truth would be worth hearing." She wanted to say something. The words slipped through her fingers like sand. "Most men would have fought harder," she said weakly. "I'm not most men," I replied. "And I'm not in the business of keeping people who've already left the room." She picked up the envelope and left. Before reaching the hallway, she glanced back. "Emma will understand." Eventually, she said, "Emma already did." I didn't rise. I didn't argue. That night, I sat by the window of a small coffee shop off 12th Avenue, staring into a mug that had gone cold. Street lamps flickered on one by one. The bell above the door chimed, and my daughter slid into the seat across from me, hoodie and ponytail, looking so much older than she did a few years ago. "Hey, Dad," she said gently. "Hey, sweetheart." I tried to smile. It barely landed. "You okay?" "No," I admitted. She waited. "I signed the papers today," I said. "Steady." Emma blinked, then nodded almost imperceptibly. She told me she thought Angela wouldn't actually go through with it. She didn't expect me to sign. You don't have to pick sides, she said. I know. I don't like how she did it, she whispered. She's angry, I said. Maybe at me. Maybe at herself. That's not an excuse, Emma said, voice steel and sadness. She didn't sound like the little girl who rode on my shoulders at the county fair. She sounded like someone who'd learned love can be messy. I reached across and covered her hand. None of this is on you. Not one piece. She squeezed my hand hard. I just hate that it came to this. Me too, I said. But you don't have to carry our weight. Just be you. She hugged me tight. I'll support both of you, she whispered into my ear. But I see what's happening. Her words were a gift. I believe you, she said without asking me to prove it. Weeks later, the courtroom felt like the final arena. I walked in with calm. No entourage. No expensive lawyer. Just a man who knew he'd done everything he could and was ready to let go of the rest. Angela arrived like she was stepping onto a stage. Designer dress, sharp heels, a stiff leather folder. Her lawyer, thin and slick, greeted me with a nod that barely reached his eyes. They walked in first. I followed. The judge was an older woman with silver hair and sharp glasses. She didn't raise her voice. She simply read what mattered. Angela's lawyer described her as the quiet architect of our shared life. Sacrifices, emotional labor, entitlement. He painted a picture. When it was my attorney's turn, he passed the judge a single folder. Inside was the marriage contract, signed and notarized in 1995, 6 months before the wedding. The judge flipped through the yellowed copy. This is legally binding. It was filed, witnessed, and notarized. Angela's lawyer tried to dismiss it. The judge didn't blink. She ruled in my favor. Division of assets would follow the contract. Mrs. Crossley was entitled only to jointly held possessions and direct contributions she could. Prove silence. Angela looked stunned like someone expecting to win, who found herself holding nothing. Within a week, the house I had built was on the market. 10 days later, it was sold. The place I had laid tile by tile watched Emma grow up in. Gone. I didn't keep it. I called Emma and told her to meet me at a small 2-bedroom condo near her university. She showed up in jeans and a confused smile. I handed her the deed. It's yours, I said. Her mouth dropped open. Dad, you didn't have to. I wanted to. You're starting your life. Maybe it's time I started mine too. She threw her arms around me, nearly knocking the wind out of me. Across the street, Angela sat behind the wheel, watching. I didn't wave. I didn't glare. I just held the key in Emma's hand and smiled. She had played chess and forgotten the first rule. Sometimes the quietest move changes the whole game. My new condo was nothing like our old house. Clean walls. Smooth granite counters. Quiet that didn't ache. It sat on the 5th floor, overlooking the skyline. Nights felt lighter. I could breathe. Work shifted too. I had been behind the scenes at a software firm for 15 years. After the divorce, I started speaking up. I showed ideas at meetings. I stayed late because I wanted to. Late brainstorms turned into laughter and pizza. Jenna, head of marketing, nudged me. "You've changed," she said. "You used to be the ghost in the corner." A few weeks later, an email arrived. Director of Development. No big celebration. Just a quiet nod to myself on the balcony. Coffee in hand, Nashville spread out like an open road. I wasn't alone anymore. Not in the ways that mattered. Texts from Emma. Check-ins from coworkers. Late-night messages from Dev, the intern who now called me coach. Jenna sending dumb memes on Friday nights. I found comfort in small things. Morning runs. Cooking for one. The sound of keys in a dish that didn't feel like a battleground. It was mid-October when Emma called. "Can we meet at our spot?" she asked. The little cafe between a bookstore and a flower shop. We used to split a muffin there on Sundays. She arrived, curls in a messy knot. "You okay?" I asked. She paused and said, "Mom's been snapping at little things. She's cold sometimes. Other times she tries to hard bake something. Brings it over, smiles like she's fixing something. I don't think she's happy, Dad," Emma admitted. "I know," I said. Then she smiled. Aaron proposed. Out. She told me about lanterns on a rooftop. The proposal. The crying. I hugged her. "That's my girl. Can I ask you something?" she said, leaning in. "Will you walk me down the aisle?" My chest tightened in the best way. Of course. It's already the most important thing I'll ever do. We laughed about music choices and rescued the playlist from Aaron's terrible dubstep. That afternoon, something shifted between us. Not away from the past, but toward something new and solid. We had survived it together. On the morning of the wedding, the sky was October blue and perfect. I pulled up to the venue in a black Mercedes I had bought a few weeks earlier. Not to impress anyone, just a quiet reward. Emma sat beside me, dress tucked around her, veil lifted enough to show the nervous glow. At the gate, I saw Angela near the welcome table. Sequins and champagne. She turned midlife into sound and color. Her eyes caught me. Then the car. Then Emma. She didn't smile. She stood still. I walked Emma inside. Later, during the reception, Angela hovered. She laughed louder than necessary, touched my arm mid-sentence, tried to insert herself. I stayed polite. When she leaned in during the father-daughter dance and whispered, "You always were a better dancer than you gave yourself credit for," I smiled and turned back to Emma. That night, a knock came at my door. Angela stood on the porch, coat too thin for the cold, mascara clinging to her cheeks. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice trembling. I held the door and stepped aside. She walked in slowly, She saw a photo on the console, me and Emma at the wedding. Arms linked. Laughing. "You look happy there," she said. "I am," I answered. She started to cry. "I made a mistake. I thought I wanted more. I thought I'd feel free." She looked at me, searching. "You're not here because you miss me," I said gently. "You're here because the world didn't give you what you thought it would." "That's not fair," she snapped. "It is honest," I replied. "You thought you'd land somewhere brighter. When the spotlight didn't follow, you came back looking for the only light you ever had." She stepped back. Tears faded. Eyes hardened. "You think you've become something special," she hissed. "Just because you bought a car and got promoted?" I said nothing. "You are the most passive, dull, ungrateful man I have ever known." She spat. "You just sit there calm, boring, smug like you didn't ruin everything. You don't get to rewrite the ending just because you don't like how it feels," I said. She stormed out. The door slammed. I stood for a moment, listening to silence that felt clean. A few nights later, an old friend's rooftop birthday put everyone in the same room. Angela showed up in emerald, laughing a little too loudly. She began to tell our story, painting me as cold and checked out. Then Elaine, a friend of hers, spoke up. "That's rich," she said. "You were seeing someone behind his back for almost a year." The gasps rippled. Angela's face drained. I said nothing. I finished my drink, set the glass down, and gave Elaine a respectful nod. My silence spoke louder than any argument could. People's conversations shifted away from Angela and toward me. At a neighborhood barbecue, I showed up with a pie Emma had baked. Friends gathered around, asked how I was, handed me plates. Angela sat alone under an oak bright dress meant to catch attention. No one joined her. I didn't gloat. I just noticed. And she noticed too. Consequences don't always scream. Sometimes they settle in the space between chairs. In the silence after your name stops being brought up. By the time the sun dipped low, Angela stood alone near her car. No one walked her to the door. That was the end of our story. Emma chose distance from her mother, even when it meant giving up old comforts. Do you think she did the right thing? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your take on that moment. If this story hit something real for you, go ahead and like the video. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.
Story 6.
My girlfriend Lauren hit me with it over breakfast on a random Thursday morning in early June. We were sitting at the kitchen table in our apartment, the one we'd shared for 2.5 years. Sunlight streaming through the window onto the half-eaten plates of scrambled eggs I just made. She was stirring her coffee longer than usual, staring into the mug like it held some big secret. "Jake," she finally said, voice quiet but steady, "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us. I think we should take some time apart. Just a pause, you know? To make sure this is what I really want long term." I paused with my fork halfway to my mouth, feeling the words sink in slowly. We'd been talking about moving in together permanently. Wait, we already had. But more seriously, about getting engaged by the end of the summer. I'd even started looking at rings discreetly, saving up from my graphic design freelance gigs. Our anniversary trip to the lake cabin was booked for the long weekend, just 4 days away. A place I'd reserved back in April because it was her favorite spot from childhood. A pause, I repeated, setting the fork down. How long are we talking? I don't know exactly. A few weeks? A month? I just need space to clear my head without all the future pressure. She'd been distant lately, I realized in that moment. Coming home later from her marketing job, glued to her phone during dinners, canceling plans to hang out with her new work friends more often. I chalked it up to stress from a big project at the office, maybe nerves about committing deeper. But this felt different. Okay, I said, keeping my tone even. If that's what you need, take the time. Her eyes widened slightly, like she'd braced for an argument. That's it? You're just okay with it. You said you need space to think clearly. I'm not going to stand in the way of that. She nodded slowly, then pushed back from the table. I'll pack a bag tonight and stay with my sister Rachel for a bit. We can talk more later if you want. I helped her load the suitcase into her car that evening, the air thick with unspoken things. She gave me a quick hug, murmured something about how reasonable I was being, and drove off. The second her car turned the corner, I exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Then I grabbed my phone and got to work. First thing Friday morning, I unfollowed her across every platform: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, even the shared Spotify playlists we had. I set my accounts to private where needed, so she couldn't peek in without requesting. A clean break digitally, at least from my side. Next, I called my brother Alex. He was single, always up for adventures, and we'd been close since kids. Hey man, I said when he picked up. You free for a long weekend starting tomorrow? I've got this lake cabin booked. Sleeps for, but it's just us if you're in. Kayaks, fishing, the whole deal. Wait, isn't that the trip with Lauren? What happened? She needed some personal time, so I'm repurposing the getaway. You game? He hesitated only a second. Hell yeah. Been ages since we did something like that. I'll pack tonight. Cool. Pick you up at noon tomorrow. Lauren texted me that afternoon. Hey, how are you holding up? Doing all right. Focusing on some me time stuff. Like what? Just clearing my head. Same as you. She went quiet for hours. Then, glad you're okay. Miss you a little already. I left it on read. Saturday rolled around, and things escalated quietly. Rachel called me while I was packing the cooler. Jake? It's Rachel. Lauren's here and she's confused. She says you're acting way too calm about everything. I'm respecting her request for space. Ratch? Yeah, but she thought you'd be more, I don't know, upset? Trying to convince her otherwise? If she's unsure about us after 2.5 years, pushing her won't fix that. Rachel sighed. She's saying you're being cold. Like you don't care. I care enough to let her figure it out without pressure. A long pause. Okay. Just be careful, all right? 20 minutes later, Lauren texted again. Rachel said you guys talked. Are you really fine with this pause? You asked for time apart. I'm giving it to you. We should probably set some ground rules, though. Like, is this an open pause? Are we allowed to see other people? I stared at the message, feeling a cold clarity settle in. She wanted the freedom without the fallout.do, whatever helps you think clearly. Lauren. That's not an answer. Right now, we're on a pause. You made that choice. I don't know play-by-play on my life. She called 3 times after that. I let them ring through to voicemail. The messages were long. Her explaining that pauses don't mean total breakup, that we should communicate expectations, that she still cared deeply. I listened to the first one halfway, then deleted the rest. Sunday morning, Alex and I hit the road early. The drive to the lake was 3 hours, windows down, classic rock blasting. We talked about everything except Lauren, work, his latest failed dating app stories, my ideas for a new design portfolio. By the time we pulled up to the cedar cabin nestled in the pines, overlooking the glassy water, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. We spent the day kayaking, grilling burgers on the deck, skipping rocks like we were teenagers again. Alex cracked open beers as the sun dipped low, painting the sky orange. This place is incredible, he said, clinking his bottle against mine. You sure you're good? I mean, really? Better than I expected. Feels like breathing fresh air after being stuck inside too long. He nodded, didn't push further. That evening, after a swim in the cool water and a campfire going, I snapped a photo of us, grinning, arms slung around each other's shoulders, the lake shimmering behind. Posted it to my Instagram stories and feed. Best weekend getaway with the best brother. Couldn't ask for more. Likes poured in fast. Friends commenting hearts, old college buddies saying it looked epic. Mutual friends with Lauren would see it. No doubt. By the time we turned in around midnight, my phone was vibrating nonstop in my pocket. I waited until I was in my bunk before checking. Lauren had blown it up. Happy anniversary weekend, I guess. Saw your post. Looks fun. Wait, you're at the lake cabin? With Alex? That's the trip we planned together. You took your brother instead? This feels pointed. Jake. Everyone's messaging me asking if we're okay, and my coworker saw the post and thought we broke up. You need to take it down or explain. This is immature. Please call me. I didn't mean for you to go without me. I miss you so much right now. This pause is harder than I thought. Maybe I made a mistake. Can we talk when you get back? I'm sorry that I love you. Please don't shut me out. I want to fix this stuff. 28 messages. Timestamps stretching from 9 p.m. to after 2 a.m. I screenshot them all, turned the phone face down, and slept better than I had in months. Monday morning, we hiked a trail nearby, spotted deer, took more photos. Lauren tried calling twice. I declined both. Another string of texts begging to talk, saying she was ready to end the pause early. We drove home Tuesday afternoon, tanned and relaxed. I dropped Alex off with a fist bump and a promise to do it again soon. Wednesday morning, back in the apartment, the doorbell rang at 8:15. I knew who it was before opening. Lauren stood there, hair messy, eyes red like she hadn't slept well. Overnight bag at her feet. Can I come in? We really need to talk. I stepped aside. She brushed past, set the bag down, turned to face me. About the cabin. About the post. About everything. What about it? You made it look like we're done. My parents called worried. Rachel's confused. Everyone thinks I got dumped. You asked for time apart 4 days before our anniversary trip. I gave you that time. I didn't mean for you to replace me with your brother and broadcast it. It was my reservation, Lauren. My weekend. You opted out. She paced the living room. I was overwhelmed with work and the idea of forever. I panicked and said something stupid. I don't want to pause anymore. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Do you still have doubts about us long term? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away for a beat too long. That's what I thought. It's not black and white, Jake. Relationships are complicated. Not this part. Either you're all in or you're not. Tears welled up. Please, give me another chance. I'll cancel the pause right now. Too late. You needed clarity. I'm giving you permanent clarity. She cried harder then, pleading, promising therapy, date nights, anything. I listened, felt a pang of sadness for what we'd had, but mostly relief. Pack whatever you left and go, Lauren. We're done. The next few days were a whirlwind. She enlisted friends to reach out. Rachel texting apologies on her behalf. A couple mutual buddies asking if I was sure. I kept responses short. She wanted space. I gave it. Word spread anyway. People saw the cabin post, heard versions of the story. My aunt called Saturday. Heard from your mom that Lauren needed a break. Honey, You deserve someone certain. Turns out others had noticed things too. How Lauren often flaked on family events if something better came up. How she'd get moody if plans didn't center her excitement. Friends confessed later they'd worried she was taking me for granted. Sunday, she showed up again with coffee and pastries from our favorite bakery. Eyes hopeful. I accepted the food politely, then handed back the spare key she'd left. I'm changing the locks tomorrow anyway. Defeated, she left. Monday, I started untangling logistics. No ring yet. Thank God. But shared streaming accounts, joint savings for the future house we talked about. I transferred her half back. Closed IT to BY midweek. The real reason surfaced. A coworker of hers, someone I'd met at holiday parties, messaged me privately. Hey man, sorry to butt in, but Lauren's been messaging this guy she dated briefly before you. Coworker from her old job who transferred back recently. Nothing happened physically that I know of, but she's been venting to him a lot, saying she felt trapped. Thought you should know. Clicked. The late nights, the phone secrecy. She'd wanted the pause to test waters elsewhere without losing the safety net that I thanked him. Blocked Lauren everywhere permanently. The weeks since have been surprisingly peaceful. I picked up new design clients, started running mornings again, reconnected with friends I'd sidelined for couple plans. Alex and I grab beers Thursdays now, our new ritual. Mom says I sound happier on calls, less tense. She's right. Lauren tried a few more outreach attempts through others, always the same regret, the "I was scared" excuses. My answer stayed consistent. She got the space she asked for. Permanently. Sometimes people reveal exactly what they need, and the kindest thing for both of you is to let them have it without a fight. That I'm moving forward lighter. Grateful I saw the truth before rings and vows locked it in. The lake air cleared more than just my head. It cleared my future.
Story 7.
My name is Wesley Wes Carter, and I fix cars for a living. My hands are permanently stained with motor oil. My back aches from crawling under rusted-out Chevys, and my bank account has seen better decades. But I'm honest work, which is more than I can say for most of the people in this room. 7 years ago, I was about to marry the most beautiful woman in Millbrook Harbor. Jennifer Jenna Walsh had honey blonde hair, green eyes that could make a man forget his own name, and a smile that promised forever. We were planning a small wedding, nothing fancy. I couldn't afford fancy. We'd live in the apartment above my garage, start a family, build something real together. Then my brother Kurt came back to town. Kurt Carter, 3 years older, 6 inches taller, and about $6 million richer than me. He'd made his fortune in real estate development, turning small coastal towns like ours into playgrounds for wealthy city folks. Where I saw home, he saw profit margin. It took him exactly 2 weeks to steal my fiancée. I remember the night Jenna told me. We were sitting in Murphy's Tavern, the same booth where I'd proposed 6 months earlier. She couldn't even look me in the eye. "Wes, I'm sorry, but I can't marry you," she'd said. twisting the engagement ring off her finger. Kurt can give me things you never could. A real house, security, a future? What about love? I'd asked, my voice cracking like a teenager's. She'd finally looked at me then, and what I saw in her eyes was worse than hatred. It was pity. Love doesn't pay the bills, Wes. 3 months later, she was Mrs. Kurt Carter, living in a mansion on Harbor Hill, driving a BMW, and posting pictures of her perfect life on social media for all of Millbrook to see. The family split down the middle. Mom took my side, refusing to speak to Kurt for 2 years. Dad, always the practical businessman, sided with Kurt's smart financial decisions. The town took bets on which brother would crash and burn first. 7 years later, here we were, burying the old man who'd chosen golden boy Kurt over his grease monkey younger son. I adjusted my only decent tie, the same one I'd worn to their wedding because I'm either a masochist or too broke to buy a new one, and watched Kurt make his grand entrance. He swept through the funeral home doors like he owned the place, which, knowing Kurt, he probably did. His charcoal suit cost more than I made in 3 months. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his smile practiced and political. And on his arm, sparkling like a Christmas tree, was Jenna. She'd aged well, I had to admit. Yoga classes, personal trainers, and spa treatments had kept her figure trim and her skin glowing. Her black dress was designer, her jewelry real, her confidence absolute. She surveyed the room like a queen reviewing her subjects. Their entrance caused the expected stir. Whispers rippled through the crowd, heads turned, and I caught Mrs. Larkin from next door shooting me sympathetic glances. The whole town knew our history, and they were all waiting to see how this would play out. Kurt worked the room like the politician he'd always wanted to be, shaking hands, accepting condolences, playing the grieving son. Jenna smiled and nodded at his side, the perfect supportive wife. I stayed in my corner watching the show. Wes? A voice beside me made me turn. It was Mike Sullivan, my old boxing coach from high school. Big Mike, we called him. 6'4" and built like a refrigerator, with hands that could crack walnuts and a heart soft as butter. Hey, Mike, I said, grateful for a friendly face. Hell of a thing, he said, nodding toward the casket. Your dad was a complicated man, but he loved you boys. He had a funny way of showing it. Mike studied me with those sharp brown eyes that had coached a dozen kids to state championships. You holding up okay? I know this can't be easy with... He glanced toward Kurt and Jenna. I'm fine, I lied. You know, if you need anything. I said I'm fine. Mike nodded, but I could tell he didn't believe me. Well, you know where to find me. As he walked away, I felt more alone than ever. My daughter Casey should have been here, but she was away at college, her sophomore year at Boston University, paid for by her mother's life insurance money. We'd grown apart since her mom died 3 years ago, and I knew she blamed me for not being there enough. Maybe she was right. The service began with Father Mackenzie reading from the same tired playbook he'd used for every funeral in the past 20 years. Kurt delivered the eulogy, painting a picture of our father as a devoted family man and pillar of the community. It was a masterpiece of selective memory, conveniently forgetting Dad's drinking problem, his gambling debts, and the way he'd pit his sons against each other from the time we could walk. As Kurt spoke about family bonds that passing cannot break, I caught Jenna watching me. When our eyes met, she smiled. Not the warm smile I'd once loved, but something cold and calculating. After the service, people milled around the reception area, picking at finger sandwiches and sharing memories that got more flattering with each retelling. I was heading for the exit when Jenna intercepted me. Wesley, she said, her voice honey-sweet with just a hint of venom. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thanks, I replied, trying to step around her. She moved to block my path, standing close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. You know, I was just thinking about how different our lives turned out. Were you now? She glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned in close. Her breath was warm against my ear. She whispered, "So, I guess I won, right? You're still poor." For a moment, I felt the old rage flare up. The same fury that had consumed me 7 years ago when she'd walked out of my life. I wanted to grab her by those perfectly manicured shoulders and shake her until that smug smile cracked. Instead, I smiled back. "You sure about that, Jenna?" I said calmly, my voice so quiet only she could hear. "You might want to check the scoreboard before you start celebrating." Something flickered in her green eyes, confusion, maybe even the hint of fear. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could answer, Kurt appeared at her elbow, his politician smile firmly in place. "Wes, there you are, little brother. I was hoping we could talk." "About what?" "Dad's will, for starters. The reading's tomorrow at Hartwell's office." "I assume you'll be there?" "Wouldn't miss it." Kurt's smile never wavered, but his eyes were calculating. Good. I think you'll find Dad was practical in his final arrangement." I'm sure he was. Jenna was still staring at me, trying to decode my earlier comment. I winked at her, which only deepened her frown. "Well," Kurt said, clapping me on the shoulder with false brotherly affection, "we should let you get going. I know you have to work tomorrow." "Actually," I said, reaching into my pocket, "I think you dropped something earlier." I held up Kurt's car key, a Porsche key fob that I'd lifted from his jacket during the handshaking portion of the evening. His hand immediately went to his pocket, confirming what I already knew. "How did you he started. "Mechanic's hands," I said, tossing the keys to him. "We're good at picking things up." As I walked toward the exit, I heard Jenna hiss something to Kurt, but I didn't look back. I had work to do. Outside, the rain had turned to sleet, coating everything in a thin layer of ice. I climbed into my battered Ford pickup, 200,000 miles and still running strong, and sat for a moment, watching through the funeral home windows as Kurt and Jenna argued in hushed tones. 7 years ago, they'd humiliated me in front of the entire town. They'd taken my fiancé, my family, and my dignity. They'd left me with nothing but a failing garage and a reputation as the brother who couldn't compete. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated. I started the truck and pulled out of the parking lot, leaving Kurt's pristine Porsche sitting alone under the funeral home's security light. As I drove away, I couldn't help but smile, thinking about what those cameras would capture in the next few hours. Sometimes revenge is a dish best served cold. Tonight, it was going to be frozen solid. I woke up at 5:30, same as always, to the sound of my alarm clock and the distant crash of waves against the harbor rocks. My apartment above Carter's auto repair wasn't much. A bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and living room that doubled as my office. But it was mine, paid for, and it came with the best view of the harbor in town. I made coffee in the same chipped mug I'd used for 10 years and checked my phone for messages. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and enough Facebook notifications to crash a server. The first text was from Mike Sullivan, sent at 2:47 a.m. "Holy crap, Wes. Did you see what happened to Kurt's car?" I scrolled through the rest of the messages, each one more excited than the last. Apparently, sometime between midnight and dawn, someone had vandalized Kurt's Porsche in the funeral home parking lot. The car had been spray painted with the word "thief" in bright red letters across the windshield, and all 4 tires had been slashed. The really interesting part? The funeral home's security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., leaving a convenient gap in the footage. I sipped my coffee and smiled. Amazing what you could accomplish with a can of spray paint, a sharp knife, and the knowledge that old Morty Morrison never bothered to maintain his security system properly. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Casey's number. "Hi, sweetheart," I answered. "Dad?" My daughter's voice was tight with worry. "I just saw the news about Grandpa's funeral. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Case. Sorry you couldn't make it. I wanted to come. But with midterms and everything..." She paused. "I heard about Uncle Kurt's car." "What about it?" "Dad?" Her voice carried that tone she'd inherited from her mother. The one that said she could see right through my BS. "Please tell me you didn't do anything stupid." "I went to a funeral, came home, and went to bed. Nothing stupid about that. The whole town is talking about it. Mom's sister called me this morning, and she said, 'Your Aunt Linda needs to find a hobby that doesn't involve gossiping about your old man.'" Casey sighed. "Just be careful, okay? I know Uncle Kurt and Jenna hurt you, but don't let them drag you down to their level." If she only knew how far down I was planning to go. "I love you, Case. Focus on your studies and let me worry about the family drama." After we hung up, I showered, dressed in my work clothes, and headed downstairs to open the garage. Carter's Auto Repair had been in business for 37 years. Dad had started it when Kurt and I were kids, back when he still had dreams of building a family legacy. Now it was just me, 2 part-time mechanics, and a steady stream of cars that had seen better decades. I was under the hood of a 2003 Honda Civic when I heard the bell above the front door chime. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked into the office to find Mrs. Larkin waiting for me, her silver hair perfectly curled, and her handbag clutched against her chest like armor. "Morning, Mrs. L," I said. "What can I do for you?" Eleanor Larkin had lived next door to my family for 40 years. She'd watched Kurt and me grow up, had been at every birthday party and graduation. She was also the unofficial town gossip, which made her both dangerous and useful. "Wesley, dear," she said. Her voice pitched low like we were sharing state secrets. "I wanted to check on you after yesterday. Such a difficult day. And then that terrible business with Kurt's car." "Terrible business?" Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Oh yes, someone really did a number on that fancy Porsche. Spray paint, slashed tires, the works. The police were there all morning, taking pictures and asking questions. Any leads?" "Well," she leaned closer, "between you and me, I don't think they're trying very hard to solve it. Half the town thinks whoever did it deserves a medal." I tried to look appropriately shocked. "That's awful. Mrs. L. Vandalism is still a crime, even if you don't like the sufferer." "Oh, of course, dear. I'm not saying I approve." Her smile suggested otherwise. "It's just that some people have been asking for a comeuppance for a very long time." The bell chimed again, and Tommy Rodriguez, one of my part-time guys, walked in, his face flushed with excitement. "Wes, you gotta see this," he said, waving his phone. "Someone posted pictures of Kurt's car on Facebook. It's going viral." Mrs. Larkin practically vibrated with curiosity. "Pictures?" Tommy showed us his phone screen. Someone had taken photos of the vandalized Porsche and posted them with the caption, "Karma has 4 wheels and red spray paint." The post had been shared over 300 times in the past hour. "My goodness," Mrs. Larkin breathed. "The whole town will see this." "Already has," Tommy said. My girlfriend works at the diner, and she says it's all anyone's talking about. People are taking bets on who did it. Any favorites? I asked. Well, your name's come up a few times. Mrs. Larkin shot me a sharp look. Wesley wouldn't do such a thing. He was raised better than that. Course not, Tommy agreed quickly. I told everyone you're not the type for that kind of revenge. If only they knew what type I really was. The morning passed quickly with a steady stream of customers who all seemed more interested in discussing Kurt's car than their own automotive problem. By lunchtime, I'd heard 17 different theories about the vandalism, ranging from disgruntled business partners to teenage pranksters to a secret cabal of Kurt's ex-girlfriend. Around noon, Mike Sullivan stopped by with sandwiches from the deli. Figured you might be too busy to eat, he said, settling his bulk into the chair across from my desk. Thanks, Mike. What's the word from the boxing club? Same as everywhere else. Everyone's talking about your brother's car. He unwrapped his sandwich and studied me with those coaching eyes. Funny thing, though. I was at Murphy's last night after the funeral, and I could have sworn I saw you leave around 11. Sounds about right. But then Billy Morrison. You remember Billy, Morty's nephew? He said he was driving past the funeral home around 1:30 and saw someone in the parking lot. Someone about your height, wearing a dark jacket. I took a bite of my sandwich and chewed slowly. A lot of people about my height in this town, Mike. True enough. He nodded. Billy's been drinking heavy since his divorce, too. Makes a man's memory unreliable. We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Mike spoke again. You know, I've been coaching fighters for 25 years. Taught dozens of kids how to throw a punch, how to take one, how to get back up when they're knocked down. You were a good coach. The thing about fighting, he continued, is that the best fighters aren't the ones who hit hardest. They're the ones who think 3 moves ahead, who wait for the perfect opening, who make their opponents defeat themselves. I looked up for my sandwich. That's supposed to mean something, Mike? Just thinking out loud. He stood and gathered his trash. You take care of yourself, Wes. And remember, the best victories are the ones where you don't have to throw a punch. After he left, I sat alone in my office thinking about his words. Mike was right about fighting. But he was wrong about one thing. Sometimes you had to throw a punch. You just had to make sure it counted. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at the marina at 6 p.m. Come alone. Jay. Jenna wanted a meeting. Perfect. I spent the rest of the afternoon planning exactly what I was going to say to my brother's wife. 7 years of humiliation, 7 years of watching them parade their perfect life around town. 7 years of being treated like the family failure. Tonight, that was going to change. The Millbrook Harbor Marina was Kurt's latest project. A gleaming monument to gentrification that had replaced the old fishing docks where my grandfather used to work, where weathered lobstermen once mended nets. Wealthy tourists now sipped wine on their yacht decks, where honest working boats once bobbed in the harbor. Sleek pleasure craft now displayed their owner's net worth like floating billboards. I arrived at 6 o'clock sharp, parking my pickup between a Mercedes and a Tesla. The contrast wasn't lost on me, or on anyone else who might be watching. Jenna was waiting at the end of the main pier, silhouetted against the setting sun. She'd changed out of her funeral attire into designer jeans, a cashmere sweater, and boots that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Even in casual clothes, she looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. You came, she said as I approached. You asked nicely. She turned to face me, and I saw something in her expression I hadn't expected. Uncertainty. The confident woman who'd taunted me at the funeral was gone, replaced by someone who looked almost nervous. What did you mean yesterday? She asked without preamble. About checking the scoreboard? I leaned against the pier railing, taking my time before answering. Straight to the point. I always liked that about you, Jenna. Don't. Her voice was sharp. Don't pretend we're friends, Wes. We both know what this is about. Do we? You vandalized Kurt's car. Did I? The timing's too convenient. The security cameras malfunctioned the same night someone spray paints thief on his Porsche? Come on. I smiled. You know, it's interesting that you assume it was. What does that say about your opinion of my character? It says I know you better than you think. No, I said quietly. You never knew me at all. If you had, you might have made different choices 7 years ago. Something flickered across her face. Regret maybe, or just annoyance. I made the right choice, Wes. Look at my life now. Look at yours. I am looking. Question is, are you? She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could answer, voices carried across the water. A group of investors was walking toward us, Kurt at their center, gesturing grandly as he pointed out the marina's features. I recognized two of them, Richard Blackwood from Portland and Samuel Chen from Boston, both major players in coastal development. Jenna, Kurt called out when he spotted us. What are you doing here? She turned toward the group, her society smile snapping into place. Just getting some air. You know how I love the harbor at sunset. Kurt's eyes narrowed when he noticed me. Wesley. Twice in 2 days. That might be a record for me. Just enjoying the public pier, I said. Beautiful evening for it. The investors had stopped a few feet away, clearly sensing tension but too polite to leave. Kurt had no choice but to make introduction. Gentlemen, this is my brother Wesley. He owns the auto repair shop in town. Ah, a local businessman, said Blackwood, extending his hand. Pleasure to meet you. Likewise, I replied. I've heard great things about your development work. Very transformative. Thank you. Your brother's been showing us the marina project. Quite impressive. Oh yes, I said, warming to the topic. Kurt's always been good at transforming things. Taking something that belongs to one person and making it belong to someone else. Kurt's smile grew strained. Wesley has a very nostalgic view of progress. Nothing wrong with nostalgia, said Chen. It's important to honor a community's history while building its future. Absolutely, I agreed. Take this marina, for instance. Used to be working docks where local fishermen made their living. Now it's a playground for people who can afford $50,000 boats. Some might call that progress. Others might call it theft. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Kurt's face flushed red. I think what my brother means. He started. I think your brother can speak for himself. Blackwood interrupted, studying me with new interest. You disagree with the marina project, Mr. Carter? I disagree with the methods, I said. See, those fishermen didn't want to sell. They'd been working these docks for generations. But somehow, their leases got bought out from under them. Their permits got tangled up in red tape. Their insurance rates mysteriously skyrocketed. Funny how that works. Kurt's jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. The marina project was completely legal and above board. All the proper procedures were followed. Oh, I'm sure they were. You've always been careful about legality, Kurt. It's the ethics that get a little fuzzy. Chen and Blackwood exchanged glances. This wasn't the kind of family harmony they expected from their business partners. Well, said Blackwood carefully, family businesses can be complicated. Different perspectives and all that. Exactly. For instance, I'm sure Kurt told you all about how he built his real estate empire. But did he mention how he got his start? How he convinced his first major client to leave her fiancé and marry him instead? Quite a romantic story, really. Very entrepreneurial. Jenna had gone pale. Kurt looked like he wanted to strangle me with his bare hands. I think that's enough family history for one evening, Kurt said through gritted teeth. But we're just getting to the good parts, I protested, like how easy it is to buy friends these days. Or how some people will do anything for money, even betray the people who love them most. The investors were clearly uncomfortable now. Chen cleared his throat. Perhaps we should continue this tour another time, Mr. Carter. It's getting late and we have dinner reservations. Of course, Kurt said quickly, and Jenna, why don't you walk our guests back to their car? As the group moved away, I heard Blackwood murmur to his companion, family dynamic. Always a red flag in business partnerships. When they were out of earshot, Kurt turned on me with fury blazing in his eyes. What the hell is wrong with you? He hissed. Just making conversation. You're trying to sabotage my business. Am I? I thought I was sharing family stories. You always said family was important. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Stay away from my investors, Wesley. Stay away from my business. And stay away from my wife. Your wife approached me, remember? Maybe you should ask yourself why. I'm warning you. You're warning me? I laughed. Kurt, you've spent 7 years treating me like dirt under your shoe. You stole my fiancé, turned my father against me, and made me a joke in this town. And now you're warning me? I never stole anything. Jenna made her choice. Yeah, she did. Question is, does she regret it yet? Before he could answer, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. By the way, I think you dropped this earlier. His eyes went wide. Where did you get that? Same place I got your car keys yesterday. You really should be more careful with your personal belongings. I tossed the drive to him and started walking toward my truck. Oh, and Kurt, you might want to check with your investors tomorrow. I have a feeling they'll have some interesting questions about your business practices. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Kurt and Jenna in heated conversation by the pier. She was gesturing angrily. He was trying to calm her down. And both of them kept looking in the direction my truck had gone. The USB drive had been a bluff. Just an old backup drive from my computer. But they didn't know that. They were probably spending the evening wondering what information I might have on them. What secrets I might be planning to expose. Let them wonder. Fear was a powerful weapon. And I was just getting started. I drove home through the darkening streets of Millbrook Harbor, past the houses where I'd grown up, past the school where Kurt and I had played football, past Murphy's Tavern, where Jenna had broken my heart 7 years ago. Tomorrow was the will reading. Tomorrow, Kurt would learn that our father hadn't been quite as practical in his final arrangements as he'd assumed. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. Hartwell, Morrison and Associates occupied a converted Victorian house on Elm Street. All dark wood paneling and leather-bound legal tomes that were probably older than the town itself. I'd been here exactly once before, when I'd needed a lawyer after my divorce from Casey's mother. That had been a different kind of family dissolution, but just as painful. I arrived 10 minutes early, partly out of habit and partly because I wanted to watch Kurt and Jenna make their entrance. They didn't disappoint. Kurt in another expensive suit, Jenna in a black dress that managed to be both funeral appropriate and stunning. Both of them carrying themselves like they owned the world. Which in about 20 minutes, they probably thought they would. Wesley. Kurt nodded as they settled into chairs across from me in the conference room. Prompt as always. Wouldn't want to miss this, I replied. Jenna avoided eye contact, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. The way her fingers drummed against her purse. Our conversation at the marina had rattled her more than she wanted to admit. James Hartwell entered the room with the gravity of a man who'd been delivering life-changing news for 40 years. He was tall, silver-haired, and had the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter without realizing. Gentlemen, Mrs. Carter, he said, settling behind his mahogany desk. Thank you for coming. I know this is a difficult time, but your father's final wishes were quite specific about timing. He opened a leather folder and withdrew several documents. The will is relatively straightforward, but there are a few unusual provisions that your father insisted upon. Kurt leaned forward slightly. Unusual how? Well, let's start with the business asset. Carter's Auto Repair, including the building, equipment, and land, is left entirely to Wesley. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was smiling. Dad and I might have had our differences, but he'd understood which son actually knew how to fix things. That's fine, Kurt said dismissively. I never wanted the garage anyway. The house on Maple Street, Hartwell continued, along with its contents and the surrounding property, is also left to Wesley. Now Kurt's confident expression flickered. I'm sorry, what? That house is worth $300,000. Indeed, your father was quite clear about this decision. Jenna spoke for the first time. What about Kurt? He can't have left him nothing. Hartwell consulted his document. Mr. Kurt Carter receives his father's watch collection, valued at approximately $15,000, and he paused, clearly uncomfortable. A letter. A letter? Kurt's voice was dangerously quiet. Yes. Your father insisted it be read aloud in front of witnesses. Hartwell cleared his throat and began to read. To my son, Kurt. You have always been ambitious, successful, and determined to win at any cost. You built a fortune by taking what others valued and turning it to your advantage. You took your brother's fiancée because you could, not because you loved her. You took his place in my affections because it served your purposes, not because you cared about family. You are everything I taught you to be, and I'm ashamed of that lesson. The watches are yours because you appreciate expensive things. The house goes to Wesley because he understands the difference between price and value. If you're angry about this decision, look in the mirror for someone to blame. The silence that followed was deafening. Kurt's face had gone from red to white to red again, cycling through emotions like a traffic light. Jenna looked like she'd been slapped. There's more, Hartwell said gently. A trust fund. was established for your daughter, Casey, Wesley. $200,000 for her education and future needs. I felt a genuine smile cross my face for the first time in days. Dad always liked Casey. He did indeed. Hartwell set down the papers. There are some additional provision. Life insurance policies, some investments. But those are the major bequests. Do you have any questions? Kurt stood abruptly, his chair was scraping against the hardwood floor. This is ridiculous. He was senile, sick. This can be contested. Your father was examined by 2 physicians in the month before his end, Hartwell replied calmly. Both certified his mental competence. The will is ironclad, Mr. Carter. I made sure of that personally. We'll see about that. Kurt turned toward the door, then stopped and looked back at me. Enjoy your inheritance, little brother. But remember, money doesn't buy class, and property doesn't make you a better man. You're right, I said. But it does make me a richer one. After they left, Hartwell and I spent another hour going through the paperwork. The house alone was worth more than I'd made in the past 5 years. Combined with the garage and the land it sat on, I was suddenly worth close to $500,000. Your father was very thoughtful about this, Hartwell said as he handed me the keys to the house. He came in 6 months ago to revise the will. Said he'd been watching his sons for years, and he finally understood which one had inherited his values and which one had inherited his mistakes. Did he say anything else? He said Kurt had won every battle but lost the war. And he said you were stronger than you knew, but that you'd need to prove it to yourself before you could prove it to anyone else. I drove to the house on Maple Street, my house now, and sat in the driveway for a long time. It was a modest 2-story colonial, nothing fancy, but it had been home for the first 18 years of my life. Kurt had grown up here too, in the bedroom next to mine, back when we'd been brothers instead of enemies. My phone buzzed with a text from Casey. Dad, just heard about the will. Are you okay? I typed back, I'm fine, sweetheart. Your grandfather left you something too. We'll talk tonight. Another text, this one from Mike Sullivan. Heard about the will reading, drinks at Murphy's to celebrate. And then, unexpectedly, one from Jenna. We need to talk. Please. I stared at that last message for a long time. 7 years ago, Jenna had chosen Kurt because he could give her security, status, and wealth. Now, suddenly, the balance had shifted. I wasn't rich, not by Kurt's standards, but I was no longer the broke mechanic she'd walked away from. I wondered what she was thinking right now, sitting in her mansion on Harbor Hill, looking at her successful husband, who'd just been publicly humiliated by his dead father. I wondered if she was starting to question the choices she'd made, the bridges she'd burned, the life she'd built on someone else's heartbreak. But mostly, I wondered if she was finally beginning to understand that winning and being happy weren't the same thing. I got out of the truck and walked up to the front door of my childhood home. The key turned easily in the lock, and I stepped inside to the smell of furniture polish and old memories. In the living room, on the mantelpiece above the fireplace, sat a framed photo of Kurt and me as kids. We were maybe 8 and 11. Arms around each other's shoulders, gap-toothed grins, completely unaware that someday we'd become strangers. I picked up the photo and studied our young faces. We'd been happy once before money and women and pride had torn us apart. before we'd learned that family could be a weapon as easily as a blessing. But that was then. This was now. And now, finally, I had the ammunition I needed to finish what they'd started 7 years ago. 3 days after the will reading, I was in my new kitchen making coffee when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I watched Jenna climb out of her BMW, looking around nervously as if she expected photographers to jump out of the bushes. She'd been texting me for days, asking to meet, to talk, to clear the air. I'd ignored every message, letting her stew in whatever combination of guilt and calculation was driving her to reach out. But apparently, she'd decided to take the direct approach. I opened the door before she could knock. "Nice house," she said, trying for casual and missing by a mile. "It'll do." She was dressed down, jeans, a simple sweater, minimal makeup. It was the closest she'd looked to the girl I'd once loved since the day she'd walked out of my life. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside and she walked past me into the living room. She moved carefully, like she was walking through a minefield, taking in the familiar surroundings with something that might have been nostalgia. "It looks exactly the same," she said. Dad wasn't big on redecorating. She stopped in front of the mantelpiece, staring at the same childhood photo I'd been studying for days. God, we were so young. Some of us still are, apparently. She turned to face me, and I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen in years. Vulnerability the polished society wife facade had cracked, revealing glimpses of the woman underneath. "I know you hate me," she said quietly. "I don't hate you, Jenna. I hate what you did. There's a difference." "Is there?" Why, I poured myself coffee, deliberately not offering her any. "Why are you here?" "Because I need to understand something. At the funeral, you said I should check the scoreboard. What did you mean?" "Figure it out." Damn it, Wes. The mask slipped completely, revealing the temper I remembered from our fights. "Stop playing games with me." "Games?" I set down my mug and looked at her. Really looked at her. "You think this is a game?" "I think you're trying to get revenge for something that happened 7 years ago. 7 years, 3 months, and 16 days, I said. "But who's counting?" She flinched. "Wes, you want to know what I meant about the scoreboard? Fine, let's talk about scores." I moved closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. 7 years ago, you left me for my brother because he was rich and I was poor. You chose money over love, status over substance. You won, right? That's what you told me at the funeral. I did what I thought was best. For you. You did what was best for you. I circled her slowly, like a lawyer addressing a jury. But here's the thing about scoreboards, Jenna. The game isn't over until it's over. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've been watching you for 7 years. Watching your perfect marriage, your perfect life, your perfect facade. And you know what I've learned? She didn't answer, but her breathing had quickened. I've learned that you're miserable. The words hit her like a physical blow. She stepped backward, shaking her head. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time Kurt took you anywhere that wasn't a business function? When's the last time he looked at you like you were more than an accessory? When's the last time he made you laugh? Stop it. You know what the real scoreboard says, Jenna? It says you traded a man who loved you for a man who owns you. It says you gave up happiness for security and got neither. It says you lost everything that mattered for things that don't matter at all. Tears were streaming down her face now. You don't understand. You don't know what it's like to be afraid of being poor, of not having enough, of being with someone like me. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. I handed her a tissue from the box on the side table. And you know what? You were right to be afraid. 7 years ago, I was a broke mechanic with big dreams and small prospects. I couldn't give you the life you wanted. She wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. Then why are you torturing me about it? Because I'm not that man anymore. I walked to the kitchen and returned with a folder full of documents. Remember my friend Danny Kozlov from high school, the computer geek who couldn't get a date? She nodded, confused by the change of subject. He started a software company 5 years ago. Security system. Mostly. Very specialized, very profitable. He needed investors. I opened the folder and showed her the first document. I gave him $50,000, my mother's life insurance money. Her eyes widened as she read the investment agreement. That $50,000 is worth $2 million today. Plus, I own 15% of a company that's about to go public. I showed her more documents. Bank statements, stock certificates, business contracts. I've been buying property quietly for 3 years. Rental houses, commercial buildings, undeveloped land. I own half the businesses on Harbor Street. She stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. But you're a mechanic. I'm a businessman who happens to fix cars. There's a difference. I took the documents back and closed the folder. You see, while you and Kurt were busy playing King and Queen of Millbrook Harbor, I was building an empire. Quietly. Carefully. Without all the flash and show. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because I learned something from watching my brother all these. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It just is. She sank into Dad's old recliner, her perfect posture finally crumbling. So you're rich. I'm wealthy. There's a difference between being rich and being wealthy, just like there's a difference between having money and having value. Then why are you still living like what? Like a normal person? I smiled. Because I am a normal person. I just happen to have money now. I still fix cars because I like fixing things. I still live simply because I don't need stuff to make me feel important. I still drive my old truck because it runs fine and I'm not trying to impress anyone. She was quiet for a long time, processing everything I'd told her. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. What do you want from me? I want you to understand something. 7 years ago, you looked at two brothers and chose the one who had money. You thought that made you smart, practical, realistic. But you made one crucial mistake. What mistake? You assumed that poor meant weak, that struggling meant failing, that being down meant staying down. I knelt in front of her chair, forcing her to meet my eyes. You never considered that the man you left might get back up stronger than before. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Wes. If I could go back. But you can't. That's the thing about choices, Jenna. You make them, and then you live with them. I stood and walked to the window. looking out at the harbor where Kurt's marina gleamed in the afternoon sun. The scoreboard doesn't say I won, and you lost. It says we both lost 7 years ago. The difference is, I learned from it. Behind me, I heard her crying. Not the delicate tears of a society wife, but the raw, ugly sobs of someone whose perfect world had just collapsed. "What happens now?" she asked when she could speak again. I turned back to her, and for a moment, I saw the girl I'd once loved, scared, vulnerable, human, but that girl had made her choice a long time ago. Now you go home to your husband and your mansion and your perfect life. And you remember that every time you look in the mirror, you're looking at someone who chose money over love and got exactly what she deserved. She stood shakily, gathering what was left of her dignity. "And you, what do you get out of it?" "Peace," I said. Finally. After she left, I sat in Dad's chair and thought about revenge. I'd planned to destroy them, Kurt and Jenna both. I'd had schemes, plots, elaborate plans for public humiliation and private devastation. I'd wanted to hurt them the way they'd hurt me. But watching Jenna break down in my living room, seeing the misery behind her perfect facade, I realized something important. They'd already destroyed themselves. Kurt had won a woman who didn't love him, built a fortune on other people's misery, and earned a reputation that would follow him forever. Jenna had traded happiness for security and ended up with neither. They were trapped in a marriage built on mutual convenience and social expectation. Two people who'd gotten exactly what they'd asked for and discovered it wasn't what they'd wanted. My phone buzzed with a text from Casey. "Dad, I heard about your investment. Why didn't you tell me you were secretly rich?" I smiled and typed back, "Because being rich isn't the point, sweetheart. Being happy is." And for the first time in 7 years, I actually was.